Oxycodone abuse is now considered an epidemic across the country. From prescription oxycodone addict to herbalist barber, In the Weeds can't wait to sit down and talk with Chad Padgett and share a different but all too common life-changing story. This one started in his medical court. Chad, like many who have become addicted to prescription opioids, didn't get his drugs off of the black market. They were prescribed for his serious medical issues by his hometown doctor. After removal of his spleen in 1990, then his gallbladder in 1992, by the fall of 2007, he was diagnosed with acute pancreatitis, which left Chad officially disabled. A year later, Padgett was told that his chronic pancreatitis would lead to diabetes and pancreatic cancer, and gave him 7 years to live. By 2013, after 6 years of procedures and an eventual addiction to oxycodone and methadone, Chad's doctor's 7th-year death sentence was staring him right in the face. Padgett decided he wasn't going to lay there slowly dying in a hospital bed for the alleged last year of his life. Then he tried a simple cannabis vegetable glycerin tincture, and his oxycodone intake dropped immediately. That is when Chad's life changed for the better. Coming off all the narcotics in a 3-week period at home, putting his chronic illness into remission. Newfound health changed Padgett's disabled status, and he went back to school and trained to be a barber. But his knowledge of cannabis led him to the realization of other beneficial herbs, and Chad went on to receive a diploma as a master herbalist. Now a medical cannabis activist, Re-Legalize Indiana board member, regional director at Indiana Normal, and owner of Pag's Apothecary LLC, you will want to tune in on March 10th at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio sits down with herbalist barber Chad Padgett to hear how cannabis changed his life at www.facebook.com Prohibition Talk Radio.
All right, guys, welcome back to another week of In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. This is your host, Joseph Smith, and our team. Let's say hi to everybody. We have Timothy Fair from Vermont Cannabis Solutions. Tim, how you doing today?
I'm great, Joe. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Chad, nice having you on the show. Justin, Sherry, hello.
Hey,
All right, we have Sherry Tuckis, our green nurse, doing the Can Talk segment this week as well. How you doing today, Sherry?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly a pleasure to be part of In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, bringing the green nurse good news to your show.
We have a great segment talking about colon today, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then we have our Strain of the Week segment producer, hair guy, Justin C. From the Bud Grower. Man, we're glad to have you back on. Looking forward to another fun segment this week.
Oh, it's good to be here. Good to see everybody, and look forward to doing this week.
I'm starting to see a trend, though, Justin, in your taste of cannabis. So we'll talk about that when we get to the segment. They always are, the same ones that kind of, they're fun ones. They're great. Last week we did, what was it? Master's Mistress, right?
Yep.
So if you guys want to check out that, you can find it on our YouTube channel, our Facebook right now. We just pushed it today and all those things. And check it out. It's a lot of fun. So this week, guys, we're going to do a show that has a lot of meaning to it, I think. Something that I don't think we talk about enough in cannabis, because we talk about a lot of other things, but I don't think we talk about, the prescription epidemic that we have, right? With pills, drugs, whatever, can get peddled on. We've had a run of guests that have come on. We've talked about getting stuck in the systems and the way things work. Chad, unfortunately, was one of those people as well. He's going to be telling us his story, but he survived. He's here with us. He's doing a lot of great things in cannabis. He's rocking it in Indiana, so we're really excited to have him on. We've had on 2 guests on this back to back this week, which actually, honestly, I didn't even really realize until a couple days before the show, when I'm doing the history with you, like doing my background research, and I'm like, wow, these guys are from Indiana. Wait, they know each other. Wait, they're supporting each other. Oh, this is gonna be great. So we had Jason L. Straw on last week, which was another amazing story. And from a totally different angle, his changing point was from a medical side of things, right? As the doctor, as the person who saw the care being working, right? Like being used, it was working. He saw dramatic differences, right? And now here's the patient, right? So Chad, let us know who you are, where you're from, and the cannabis thing. How did you fall into cannabis?
Hello, I'm Chad Padgett. I'm from Walton, Indiana, a little town in central Indiana, I guess. I first actually started using cannabis when I was 11. What sparked my interest was the DARE officers coming to the grade school to tell us how bad cannabis was for us and to basically snitch on anybody that had it. And, I was thinking to myself, I wonder what that really is going to do, because I don't think that's going to kill me. Of course, 6th grade, I had a buddy come up to me. We're going to go to the basketball game, and hey, we fired up a doobie on the way, and that was my first time. I couldn't quit laughing at that ball game, but and my use wasn't daily at that point. I was just experimenting. But as time went on, I started using a little bit more, and I didn't really know why at the time. Now I do, but back then I just thought, well, it just kind of makes me feel better. And I was a cross country and track runner in high school, so I knew about the runner's high. I knew what that was, and then, you start using cannabis and you start having digestive issues and you start feeling that runner's high again. It's like, well, how did I do that without actually running? But, it progressed a little bit. And in 1990, I was a passenger in a car, and I flew out the window, and I lost my spleen that night, and broke my arm and completely in half. They put a plate, 6 screws in it. They had some bad perforation, or whatever you want to call it, in my bowel, so they had to fix that. And my intestines were pretty bad. And they also told my mother that I probably wouldn't walk again. But that didn't happen. I got to be able to walk. So actually ran a 1/4 mile the day after I got out of the hospital. But well, fast forward 2 years to 1992, and I think it was about track season, and I started having real bad pains again. And I was like, what's going on here? I thought everything was good, Well, come to find out, I had to have my gallbladder removed because there was, I don't know, I'd probably destroyed it by eating ravioli in a can. But I mean, I can't say that for sure, but crappy diet doesn't help. But I just was a casual user at that point up until the time I got sick, and then I decided I should research, the cannabis a little bit more. And when I got sick, and it was the end of October of 2007, I was a part-time employee at UPS, and I was going to the local community college, and I was in one of the classes, and I had to excuse myself to go to the bathroom, and I thought, oh my goodness, I wasn't sure how I was going to drive home after that experience in the bathroom. I thought, man, what's going on here? Excuse me. Well, I went back into class, told the teacher that I had to leave. I came home and laid in my bed, and one of my buddies showed up, and he said, dude, you got to go to the hospital. You're going to die. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, you've never looked like this. You got to go right now. I ended up going later that night, and they said, had I not come in then, I probably would have died, because they couldn't figure out what it was at the time, but when they did, after they did a bunch of different tests, it took a few months, they found out it was acute pancreatitis. And along with that, I had fatty liver. And, but, so I started, I didn't know what to do. So I started going, to the doctor, getting on different medications. And then anytime you're in pain like that and you have an episode where your pancreas is inflamed, you're in some serious pain. Well, there's only so many times you can go to the local ER and them give you pain meds. You get flagged and they'll tell you you're a drug seeker. Well, you're just coming in here to get high. On the contrary, I'm not. So, well, they said you're in Kokomo last week, which is another town, down the road. Well, I was, well, from that point, they started sending me down to Indianapolis to get the pain medicine, the shots, which is an hour and a half away. So, that's a good trip down the road. But so it got worse, continually got worse. And they, and my local physician sent me to a pancreas specialist at IU Med Center. And we started looking at different options and stuff. And they ended up doing an ERCP, and they diagnosed me with chronic pancreatitis in March of 2008. And then shortly after that, it took about 5 weeks and I was deemed 100% disabled. And it went downhill from there. My health seriously declined and it was time to see the pain specialist, this, that, and the other. And they did start me out on low doses of things, but then, it gradually increased. And with me not wanting to go the route of the pain pump, they wanted to put a dilaudid pain pump in my back. I didn't want to go that route. That kind of freaked me out. They wanted to do the fentanyl patch. They wanted to do a pain stimulator, this, that, and the other. I was like, no. They did end up putting a stent in my pancreas, which that was something 10 days later. But because they have to come out, but that's not comfortable. But now
you through all this, right? You were given a 7-year lifespan, right?
Yeah. While I'm down at IU Med Center, as they're checking stuff out, they come out and said that you have so much scar tissue in there from your previous surgeries. There's no way we can do the Whipple procedure where they take out like 2/3 of your pancreas. There's no possible surgeries we can do to help this out. So what they tell me is that what we've seen in this course of action and in other cases is that you have about 7 years to live, and the only thing that you're going to be able to do is take pharmaceuticals to remain comfortable until you pass away. Now, when I went from acute pancreatitis to chronic pancreatitis, I lost 60 pounds in about 5 weeks, and it was rough. It was downward spiral really fast. So I was researching some things, and I had talked to I was trying to find at that time activists in Indiana, because I knew when I smoked that I had a little bit of pain relief. I mean, it didn't alleviate all the pain by any means, but I did notice that I felt better. I could eat a little bit more, because there was several months, possibly even years at that point, where it was just Ensure and ice chips, and that's no way to survive is on Ensures. But so anyway, I finally found a group of people that were getting together down in Indianapolis. I believe it was for a Mark Emery rally. I think he was incarcerated at the time for some seeds or something. But I met a group of people there, and there was about 8 of us. But, hey, to me, that was great. There's more than just me. I found somebody else. Here we go. And I'm probably still in contact with most of them now. But so I met a lady there that we had developed a decent friendship, and she said, "Hey, I have this tincture that you could try." And at that time, I believe I was on morphine at that time, and I tried this vegetable glycerin tincture. She gave me a bottle of it to check it out. So I took a teaspoon 3 times a day, and I had enough for a 10-day supply. And I took that, and I know that I wrote it all down. And when I looked at my notes, it was the morphine that I was on at the time of the vegetable glycerin. And it took me down from 90 milligrams of morphine to 30 milligrams. But on day 11, when I ran out, the very next day, I was right back on 90 milligrams of methadone or morphine to combat the pain, because I just couldn't take it. And what that told me was, okay, there's something to this medical marijuana that people are throwing the word around. You know, back in 2007, it wasn't everywhere, and it was definitely taboo to talk about it in Indiana, especially at the State House. But so I took that, and then, you know, realized, okay, I have to find somebody else with a higher concentration of cannabinoids. I didn't necessarily need to find somebody else. I just needed to find, you know, yeah, there has to be a stronger method of this somehow, you know. And being with a pancreas issue, that it was kind of sweet for the glycerin was a little sweet for me at the time, but I couldn't do an alcohol tincture at the time either, you know, because my pancreas just couldn't take it. But that told me I needed a higher concentration, and I researched around, found a group of underground oil shiners is what they called them, and we got together, and I obtained 20 grams of full extract cannabis oil, and I took that, and I took that for 3 weeks, and I completely came off of, well, at this time I was on 90 milligrams of methadone and 90 milligrams of oxycodone. I completely came off of all of that and successfully treated my chronic pancreatitis. So at my next doctor visit, he's like, "Hey, what, are you taking any street drugs?" And no, of course not. And then he's typing in this thing. He comes over, starts checking my ears. He goes, "So how'd you come off all those pills?" And I said, "Well, to be honest with you, I took cannabis oil." And he goes, "Huh." Went back over, started typing, and I thought, oh man, here we go. I'm getting ready to go to jail, you know, because I had no idea what was going on here. I'm freaking out. He goes, "Well, tell you what, I'm gonna have to take blood work, urine, and check all your levels and all this, that, and the other." And he did, and sent me home. And I was just waiting for the cops to knock on my door, this, that, and the other. I get a letter in the mail a week later, and he says, "Everything looks good. You keep doing what you're doing." Wow. Blew my mind, you know, right on. So, you know, here we are. And
so just like that, right? No real comment, just, you know, yeah, go home. So, that's amazing. I've had friends personally, I'm sure everybody, I'm watching Sherry as she's hearing your story, just like I can imagine what she's thinking, because she can see from the doctor's side what's going on, right? Like she's hearing what they're telling you and what they were doing to you. And I'm sure there's probably a few red alarms going off and weird things going on. But like you said, you know, this all started from a car accident, right? So it's like normal everyday life. I mean, you were a consumer, right? So it wasn't like you were new to the plant, but you never looked at it this way, right? I mean, I think a lot of us were that way, especially in our age frame. Like for me, the same thing. It was like I've been consuming since I was a kid, but I never looked at it as medicine either until I've seen it work for people. And, you know, and here you are, right? Oxycodone, man, like, you know, that's the biggest question I have for you right now is I guess what the biggest stereotype out there, right, is, you know, you're telling us this great story about coming off of narcotics when everybody in media is telling us that it's a gateway drug, right? How do you feel about that statement when you see that stuff going on, especially with the story that you just told us?
You know, the stigma is going to be the hardest thing to change, because, you know, somehow our government and a couple other entities totally brainwashed society on what cannabis is. And, you know, for them to put it as a Schedule I, completely ban it after they made the farmers grow it for the war, you know, it's what in the world, you know, now it's bad, you can't touch it, you know, but we'll go ahead and get patents for it, you know, because it actually is medicine, but you can't have it. So, man,
No, without paying a lot of money, and there's no insurance either.
Yeah, the gateway theory to me, I've never used cannabis and thought, hey, I ought to go try heroin. You know, I've never done that, never thought that. And personally, I've had enough pharmaceutical grade heroin forever now. I'll never touch another one of those pills, you know. My goodness, I've been narcotic free and I haven't taken a pharmaceutical since 2014.
So narcotics, did they help? I mean, here you are a patient. It's hard for anybody that hasn't had to deal with them or take them or consume them to understand where they put you, right? And you know, we've had guests on talking about, like, you know, the suicides and just the mind fuck that it gives you, right? Talk to me a little bit about that, because you know what the interesting fact is, and I read your story in Weed Weekly, right, which is an awesome write up. Anyways, they talked about when you were coming off how, you know, because of the power of the cannabis, like even your withdrawal systems were very minimal, right?
They definitely weren't fun, and I did have, you know, shakes, sweats, you know, diarrhea, all that stuff that comes along with it, and the pain. The pain was probably minimal, I'm thinking, compared to others that have done it. I know that if you try to come off that amount of narcotics alone without anything else, you may die. I mean, that's definitely not safe. And to be honest, I know I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm surprised you didn't turn to other drugs. I searched for something natural, you know. I mean, that was my whole plan.
How much more hardcore do you need to get after that, right? Oh man. But I mean, so now here you are, you're in a doctor's office, and then here's your turning point, right? How was that accepted by your doctor from that point? I mean, obviously he must have accepted it to a point, because you're here with us right now, right? Like, this 7-year death sentence you had expired what, 4 or 5 years ago now?
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been 2015 that I was supposedly going to pass. So yeah, 5-6 years. And the doctor that told me that is not the one that prescribed the medicine. I was referred to a pain specialist and went that route. And you know, at that point, you can't have any THC in your system while you're being prescribed these pills. I'm not sure why, if that's just another roadblock that they've got going on there. There could be some, I don't know. But anyway, my very last appointment, I initially, you know, I failed that intentionally. That way I could come off with that oil. That was my whole plan. Is, you know, I've got the oil now. I'm going to go ahead and go in, look my urine screen. They're going to tell me I can't have any more. And that's how it's going to start. And it did. Now, coming off of those narcotics, when it's crazy how vivid the colors are again, and how you have this sense of this weight lifted off of you, and you can see a lot more clear than you used to. You know, when you're on that stuff, you're in a mind fog and you're a zombie. And it says right on the bottle, drive with caution. What the hell? Why are you driving? You know? Wow. But don't drive
Wolf of Wall Street, right?
What's that?
It's like that scene from Wolf on Wall Street, right? Where he falls out of his, he thinks he drives home fine, but no, not even close, right? He just dragged himself out of the car. No, I mean, that's it's powerful, man. And unfortunately, I think we've all known somebody who's suffered with a drug abuse to a point, right? One of my best friends, same thing. And unfortunately, that little trap that you were talking about earlier, I think there's a lot of different traps in there. I think there's a medical trap in there. I think there's a legal trap, because, a lot of these programs, like I was telling you about before we went on air here, about my best friend, he, I've never seen, just smoking cannabis with him. I smoke blunts, and he'd come and help me while I'm working on my roof, and we'd smoke a blunt, and the amount of person he changed, he was like my old best friend again. You know what I mean? And the minute he gets like back to reality from stoned, I guess, and I don't want to say it that way because it makes being high sound bad, which no, but like the minute he comes down from his high, he's kind of back into that fog, like you were saying, that you're stuck in. It's that perpetual kind of depression, the fog, like you're half a step behind yourself. It's like, but when you smoke, he would have to go and get piss tested, right? Like a lot of these people that are getting these narcotics prescribed to them are under state guidelines, right? Or they got an illegal issue where they were caught. They're serving, it's their probation is they got to go serve these things, right? So that's where my friend was. He had on probation. They're gonna kick him out because he was using cannabis. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like this was a couple of years ago when in Vermont here we were making that big push and trying to get the legalization, and our medicals going, and like I was saying before, now we are close to wreck. We're not quite there, but we're almost there. He would get kicked out of his systems, which then to him he violates probation, and which then where does he go? He goes to jail, right? So like for him to try to fix his addiction and to come, and like he had the problem was he was even telling me, and maybe you've experienced patients I've talked to go, they overprescribed it to me. You know what I mean? We had Nikki Lawley on that was saying they just drowned her in it. We had Sister Suzanne. We had a little nun on. How many,
Oh,
it was fentanyl they were giving her, right? And
yeah,
she was,
400 micrograms of fentanyl every
right,
36 hours on a patch. She was 98 pounds soaking wet.
right.
Like
That's enough for a horse.
Yeah, that's enough to not even just a horse. That does a surgery. Someone can be under general anesthesia for hours with that dose.
I mean, and unfortunately, these are issues that we're looking at within our medical and legal systems when they combine like this, right? It's unreal. So stigmas, man. I mean, here you are, you're back to health, right? And now you decide to make a career out of yourself, right? So now you go back to school.
Yeah. When I was talking to the doctor there and my physician, he said, well, tell you what, we're looking at where you should probably maybe start thinking about what you're wanting to do, because it doesn't look like that they're going to say you're disabled anymore. And I was like, well, okay, I can do that, and I gave a speech down Southern Indiana, and this was weird because I had just had a disability review, and I was told that they may review your case once every 6 years. And I went and I just had this review. Everything was okay, whatever. And I went down and did this speech down in Evansville. And that following week, I received another letter stating that my case was under review again. And then that's when I knew that it was, disabilities, they know that I'm now treating myself and I'm healthier, and here we go. So, and I told my physician at the time, I said, hey, I'm thinking about going to herbalist school. What do you think about that? And he goes, well, there's some people that use herbs, and it'd be okay to do that, but I'll do something. I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So I started going to school to be a master herbalist, in which, man, that was so much information. It's
not awesome.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, when you find one plant that helps treat you and makes you alive again, look at all the other plants that are out there. There's got to be something to it. So that's, that sparked my interest there. And I was still disabled my very first month of barber school. And that was my last month of being disabled. And the whole reason I went there is my sister had been doing hair for 5 or 6 years at that point. And she's like, hey, why don't you get your barber's license? It's like a year, and you can, start working for yourself or whatever you want to do. And so I took her advice, and went to barber school. I stopped the herbalist school for a little while so I could complete barber school. And then I finished the herbalist school, and here we are starting over.
Chad the Herbalist Barber, right? It's the greatest tagline ever. I love it. All right, we're back.
Kind of.
We
All right.
back?
I can hear you. There we are.
Your face is a little frozen, but I can hear you.
That's
Yeah,
quite
you're
the
frozen,
look
Joe.
now, right?
All right, we're back.
All right, okay. Yeah, my internet just dropped there. I hate, you gotta love technology, right? So we're talking about herbs, right? And like, for one of the things, I'm a chef, so a lot of people, we talk about this a lot. Sherry, we talk about this every Tuesday with the Terpene Tuesdays, and what herbs can do for you, not just cannabis, but like how terpenes and cannabinoids and where they can be found and how they can be found, and using herbalist practices, right? Now you're a master herbalist, which is amazing, right? So we talk about a lot. Rosemary Gladstar is a friend of the show. We've done things with her before. If you're an herbalist, Rosemary, right?
Oh, yeah.
She's an amazing woman. Her Sage Mountain Resort is not too far from where I am now. I've been there. We've done a few interviews with her. But herbalist, it's a unique intro to what it is, because you really, I talked to Sherry about this, and I have this fun philosophy that, dude, you're a witch, man. Like, these were the people that we literally burned at the stake 100 years ago because they were like, wait, you can cure something with a plant? Like what? You're gonna rub ginger on something? Wait, you're gonna drink this oil you made from a weed? Like, you guys are fucking nuts, right? Like, sink these people, tie a fucking cylinder block to their leg and see if they float. You know what I mean? And if they do, they live. Like. But no, it's funny because I never put two and two together till I actually sat down with Rosemary, and she made this a conversation to me. And she's like, imagine being an herbalist, where years ago we were prosecuted, and not only were we prosecuted, but we were literally burned at the stake because people thought we were witches, right? Just for that same belief, right? And now we've seen the tides change in the last probably 15 to 20 years, especially with the food side of things, where it seems like as much as we got processed, we've also separated and gotten farm friendly. And it seems the more we go down that road, the more we see, right? And maybe that's just me in New England because we have the weird cultures here in New England, right? But farm to table is important, and especially now with COVID. I think a lot of people went out and planted a garden. How easy is it to plant a rosemary bush, right?
Yeah.
So
it's pretty simple.
Right. So, getting that, I applaud you for that, and that's great. So, not only are you doing all this, but now you're working with, re-legalize Indiana, right? And then the Indiana normal.
Well, Re-Legalize Indiana was one of the groups that was formed after that initial meeting that I went to down in Indianapolis in 2007. We don't really have a board anymore, per se. I think it's just a group on Facebook now. But and
that's all we all are, aren't we?
They come and go, But and Indiana Normal, I believe they're revamping some things. I don't know, what's going to become of all that. But in 2019, we made some groups throughout the state, and we tried to get a captain in every county, and then we had some regional directors over those counties. But we're trying. What got me speaking honestly was a guy with the same last name of me. I met him from that group in 2007, and I told him that because at one point in life I was a correctional officer at a juvenile facility. And I remember
the kids.
No.
I just watched Super Troopers last night with my son, so I apologize. They're like, "Hey, was that that was that tag on that bag of weed you got from those kids?" And he's like, "No."
No, but I do recall one night taking a High Times magazine in and reading it at my post, which was definitely against the rules. But I saw an article in there about this group called Leap. and at the time they were called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And the guy named Joe Padgett that I met down in Indianapolis called me up one day and said, "Hey, you were a correctional officer. How would you feel about speaking to the General Assembly about legalizing cannabis?" I said, "Yeah, sign me up." You know, so I got hooked up with LEAP. I'm sure you guys have heard of LEAP. Have you not? And Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And so I spoke for them at a few events throughout the state, and then I did some speaking engagements like the University of Chicago and a couple other universities around the Midwest. But that's what got me started to speak at the State House, and now I go when they ask me to. Whoever asked me to go speak up there, I usually do. But you know, my very first speech, when I stood up there on the rotunda, I looked up and I saw the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council was all along the top, and all the top law enforcement in the state. I was so nervous because I was, you know, fresh out of law enforcement and then up there talking about legalizing drugs. And however, I mean, you know, and they weren't ready for that conversation at the time. At the time, I was telling them it should be more like Portugal and, you know, decriminalize everything. But they didn't want to have that conversation. You can't even say the word marijuana at that point in the State House. But, you know, it's been a roller coaster, that's for sure.
Well, it looks like a lot of things are happening in Indiana, and it's always tough to get a state to change, especially, you know, when you're going against its grounds and its bases and all these things. I want to just say hi to everybody who's in the comments today. A lot of stuff going on, guys. So if you guys get a chance to check it out, respond, please make sure we do. There's been a lot of addicts talking about their stories too, Chad, which is amazing. You know, it's inspiring to pull something like this out and talk. Now you're a corrections officer, right? So, I mean, these are the stigmas we talk about a lot. And how do we change these stigmas? You know what I mean? When you're a corrections officer, what was the stigma towards cannabis? I mean, it's kind of funny to have this conversation with people because every state, every experience is a little different. Like, you know, when I grew up, you know, we were selling to cops, but we're also getting busted by cops. So they were like the cool cops, the cops who knew were going to bust you. It was, you know, small town, big town kind of games. You know, it was interesting for us, but like, you know, last week, you know, talking to Jason, you came out of a, you know, an enforcement type of family. So, you know, you being, you know, in enforcement, what is the stigma right now? What do you think we are in the police and enforcement want to be involved? It's like, obviously you're working with LEAP, but then like, as we're talking about LEAP, I hear, you know, I'm remembering, you know, an article I read the other day, I think it was with Montana, where they're trying, like all the police unions are binding together to go against cannabis legalization, right? They want to stay in prohibition, right? Which we'll talk about here a little bit later with Tim. But how do you feel about those situations going on? What do you see going on across the country as far as that goes?
Well, you know, I'm in Indiana specifically. I mean, I've known several law enforcement officers. You know, obviously, I've worked with a bunch of them. But on a personal level, they'll tell you, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it. We, you know, shouldn't be arresting people for a plant. However, they're enforcers, and that's, you know, their job. Now, whether they can look the other way or not, that's their own discretion. But you know, from my view of it, they know that there's other issues out there that we should be dealing with, but as it being their job, you know, I if I got caught driving down the road smoking a joint and it was one of the guys that I trained at the juvenile facility, he'll probably take me to jail, but he may not. You never know. Yeah, at this point in time, we're trying to get hemp flower back to being legal in Indiana, and we're currently looking at a law to up the nanograms of THC in your body, because we have zero tolerance right now. You get pulled over, get in a wreck, and you don't submit to the blood draw, then you're losing your license for a year. You're getting a DUI. you know, you have to consent to that, or you're getting convicted. You know, that's if you have, you know, THC in your system.
Right. And like we're going to talk a little bit later, and we talked about last week, was these minimum mandatory laws, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
you know, you get caught with even the smallest amount, you can face big time, big penalties.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then why are we still prosecuting people for a plant that's saving their life? You know, and they're, you know, the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council has been one of our biggest opponents since this has started. And, you know, how do you get them to jump on board?
They just won't let it go. They just won't let it go.
Sadly, I think they need to know somebody like you. I mean, unfortunately, but it doesn't mean knowing you. It's somebody that's close to them. You know what I mean? I think we've seen it all the time. We, you know, every one of our stories with anybody that we've inspired or touched will tell you that, you know, and if it's not about greed, it's going to be somebody close to them, right? Like if it's not about you know, corporate level money, let's say, you know, it's somebody close to them. Like, you know, I was even talking to you before, like the change for me was a young girl who had cancer. You know what I mean? That was, you know, we just did I own a sound line company. We did an event and we did a big thing for her and a fundraiser for her. And through that course of things, as I'm just, you know, enjoying it recreationally, not even thinking about the shit has saved my life. But I had a bad head injury years ago, which the doctor pulled me aside and said, it was cannabis. You know what I mean? I was fucked up on 7 meds. We talk about it. Sherry has a story. We all have a story. Tim, you know, we've all been through something that corresponds to this, right? Especially through a medical system, right? Now getting it off and getting the support and being able to get off, like you said, coming off of an opioid is not an easy thing by any means. I've seen people, I've helped my friends go through it. It's a pretty painful situation, and it takes a lot of determination and dedication, right? It's the hardest thing for anybody who's under that shadow is getting out of it, right? Like, you know, you can tell yourself all you want every day that you're gonna get out of it, but like actually getting out of it, you know what I mean? Like that was the one thing that used to be the saddest thing. It was every day my buddy was telling me he knew what was going on to him, what he was doing to himself, but he wouldn't save himself. So, you know, then you wouldn't allow it, you know, it's a perpetual thing, right? So here we are. Oh man, the stigmas, right? The stigmas, the police, everything we're going to talk about. We got a lot to talk about, guys. We're going to come back to Chad here in a minute. We're going to switch gears really quick because I want to talk about THC caps in Florida and what the fuck is going on in that state. We have a bunch of cool news. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to swear. I got excited. But when we get back, you'll understand why. Because as a medical patient, I mean, Tim, I can't wait to hear Tim go off on this. I've been itching about it since I first read the article. Talk to Tim. Because it makes no sense, right? It really doesn't make no sense. We'll talk about that afterwards. I'm going to bring Justin in real quick. We'll do the quick strain of the week. We have a long Can Talk segment, which is amazing, guys. You need to hear these things because it's all about gut health and things like, you know, what we're talking about today, literally with Chad, you know what I mean? We're colons and your intestines and all the things that, and the potential issues and how we can help, right? So Justin is back again this week from the Bud Grower. Hello, Justin.
Hey guys.
We're getting a lot of great responses from the videos, man. Everybody's loving them.
Good, excellent.
So, you know, last week, Masters Mistress, a great strain. It looked like you really enjoyed it. This week we have a new strain, right? What did we talk about this week?
So this week is called memory loss. And now, you know, we talk a lot about stomach problems and these things. This is a really good one for hunger. In a little bit of a backstory. When I was 16, I got a really bad stomach infection. And I was in Florida in a hospital for like a week. And, you know, we talk about painkillers and opioids. Well, they gave me dilaudid like all week. And it was that severe. And, you know, like Chad, you know, they told me that, you know, if I had waited a day or two, this could have been a very serious risk to my life. So I said, all right, like, you know, I'm 16, I'm whatever, I'm in the middle of this kid's hospital, you know? And when I got out, you know, I experienced a lot of, I had lost about 7 pounds while I was in the hospital because they could only feed me through an IV. And then for the second week, I lost another 3, and I'm like 125 pounds at 16. I'm now down to like 115. So if I knew that this was a thing to get me back on track, I would have, I think, you know, I would have totally been on board. But it is a very, very good strain for a loss of appetite. It really, really does hit you. So that's why I liked it. That's why I chose this one this week.
All right. Well, memory loss, guys. And here we go.
Hi guys, my name's Justin. I'm with the Bud Grower, and welcome to this week's Strain of the Week, brought to you by In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. This week's strain is by Claiborne Company, and it's called Memory Loss. So what made me pick this strain is a lot of people suffer from eating disorders, or they just can't eat, whether they're going through chemotherapy or they have a stomach ailment or any sort of thing that stops them from digesting or just makes them lose their appetite. I found a strain that really, really kicks that up a notch. And that's why I chose memory loss solely for that fact. So memory loss is a mixture between Amnesia Haze and Face Off OG. And we're going to get into those strains right now. Amnesia Haze is an extremely popular one within the Netherlands. It won the 2004 Cannabis Cup, and you can find it pretty much throughout every coffee shop there. I mean, it is an insanely popular one. It is a sativa. It has a very sharp, uplifting, fuzzy head high, and it has a very lemony, citrusy flavor to it that really kind of makes it a more enjoyable than a lot of other strains. I mean, the fruitiness is really there. Face Off OG is a very strong indica, and it's a California native strain that dates back to the 90s. It's typically a 70-30 indica dominant, and a lot of the symptoms from that are like dizzy, euphoria. It's a straight head high at first, but then has a very crushingly heavy body high afterwards. And you can really get that within memory loss. It is a very strong strain. So we're going to open this up. We're going to take a look at some of the buds, and I'm going to explain how it smells and how it tastes. So right off the bat, this is a very strong citrusy lemony smell. This is a wonderful smell. I love this. Yeah, that's very lemony, intense strain. I'm going to go over the cannabinoids and the terpenes now. Under THCA, it's 23.78%. CBGA is 2.2%. Delta 9 THC is 0.84%. CBCA 0.19. CBG 0.14, and CBDA is 0.06. Now we have the terpenes, overall 2.05%. Terpenoline is 0.96%. B-osamine is 0.24%. B-myrcene is 2.1%. B-caryophyllene is 0.15%. Limonene is 0.11%, and it's a 0.36% other. So for a lot of people, what might turn them off is just the name itself, memory loss, and it doesn't not live up to its potential. I found that when I smoked this, I found myself just very pinging, like in the head. And then as I was taking my notes as to what I was feeling on the other side of, just strain reviews and things like that, and just my notes, I felt my body just like being really heavy, and my notes are like, my letters are way bigger, you just feel a lot of weight there. I also felt a little disoriented, like I couldn't get myself back together to finish my notes. So overall, it is a very disorienting strain. It is something that I would say you should probably do at home, or if you have the day off. I know a lot of people who really should take this because of appetite losses, whether they're going through chemotherapy or they have an eating disorder. Again, there's something in the way that's stopping them from eating. The biggest feeling that I got was it was very quick to hit. Hunger was the biggest feeling that I got outside of just the heaviness and the sky high head. This made me hungry. Just as a side note, I usually take pretty organized notes, and this is how my notes look after smoking. Absolutely ridiculous. Like there's no organization whatsoever. And that's a pretty solid feeling for when you smoke this. So overall, I would say that this strain is for somebody who has the day off, looking to recuperate, looking to get their appetite back. Absolutely, this is a strong one to use. If you're trying to go through your day, or you're at work, or you're at something important, I would steer away from this to other sort of strains. But as for somebody who's looking at getting a very thorough, getting their hunger back, I would say that this is a really solid one. If all you're worried about during the day is just having a bite to eat, then this is the perfect strain for you. And that again is Memory Loss by Claiborne. So remember guys, we are putting out a promotion for the bud grower through Joe with In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. If you buy our kit, or if you buy our soil reloads, or both of them together, if you use the promo code Prohibition10 upon purchase, you will receive 10% off your entire shopping cart. Another thing that we do is we also teach and inform people how to grow cannabis for the first time. So if you are new, if you haven't even started yet and you want to learn more, visit our website, visit our social media in the links below, and we will be happy to reach out to you or talk to you if you have any questions. We love helping people. So that's the strain of the week, guys. My name's Justin. I'm with the Bud Grower, and thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.
All right, let me see if I can get my screen back here now. There we go.
So usually when I do my videos, I'll do my intro and I'll talk about the strain, and then I'll smoke, and then I'll talk about the effects. But I actually went ahead and smoked prior to doing the whole video, and I had like a very unfocused like all around me. And then as I'm taking notes, it hit me like I feel like I have a lot of weight on my arms, and I was just, by the time I was like doing the video, I'm like, oh no, where am I going with this? So it was a little bit of a difficult one for me, I guess, on Monday, but I'm glad I was able to do it. And it was definitely a good strain. I mean, I ate like 5 bags of chips.
And I was going to ask you, Justin, how much did you smoke to get that effect? Was it like like the whole joint? Like just
no. I ground it up just like I have this bowl right here, and it was like that much. It wasn't a lot. I mean, I tried to not just go head in with it because obviously I have to record myself, but if I go anymore, then I'm like, this isn't happening. I can't do it right now. So I don't smoke a lot, especially when I'm at work with most strains, right. Except for sour D's. I'll rip that all day.
Yeah, because you gotta remind people too. You're doing this at work. You're in California, right? So it's like you're a little perk of the job, but you don't want to take advantage of it, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, got a full advantage.
Well, another great strain. I just, like I say, I think I noticed a little indica, like hungry mode strain taste that you have going on here. Cause it's like, I like my indica. It's just not enough to floor me, but
yeah, I try to focus more on the medical side, or like, what are the medical benefits that use these strains, instead of, hey, what's the fun one, right? Because there are plenty of those.
Well, no, you make a great point. Unfortunately, with a lot of sativas, we see like, unless a patient's prepared or in need of that boost, like typically, it gives a lot of patients anxiety, right? Right, Sherry?
Yep.
I mean,
Nobody likes to be having anxiety attacks while they're also in pain, and that's kind of why. Yeah.
And when it does, it makes the pain worse. That's all you're doing. You're focusing on.
Right. Pain. I mean, right, and then again, that's why you just understand strains and effects and how they interact with you, and and for you to take it, smoke it, and then talk about the effect that you feel and the effect that's written, gives a unique perspective, because it's not all the time do they match, right? You know what I mean? A lot of these things are supposedly really heavy couch hitters, and you're like, I went surfing today, I feel great, yay! Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a great point to that, that you need to understand who you are, where your balance is, and especially with your endocannabinoid systems, right? Because I think it's just a piece that you're plugging in to create your balance, right? Where on that scale, a circle that piece that you need is, we don't know. Right? But everything will affect you different. That's why, it's like, have you ever gone to your weed guy and they're like, hey, and you're like, what do you suggest? They're like, dude, just smell it. You know what I mean? And to go after that thing that tickles your fancy. You know what I mean? Like the dab bars are notorious for, right? But like they hit it every time, because what smells good to you might not smell good to me. Dude, I love the funky ass smelling, nasty, greasy, cheesy, like shit that you just don't want to put in your mouth ever.
Dang.
But once you light it, it's, oh my God, so good. You know what I mean? And other people have that same effect with like the jet fuels and the gases and those heavy diesels. You know what I mean? Some people just don't know. It's too much. It's for me, it's about like that texture and that mouth feel, and then the high, right? So we all experience them a little differently, so it's fun to talk about them. So now let's talk about Florida, guys. I mean, I don't know if anybody's paying attention to this. I mean, Florida is now becoming like the new, I don't know what we want to call it, like, because they just seem like they start to run and they trip and fall and smack their face off the pavement and like go in a coma for 3 weeks, and everything starts over again, right? I mean, Tim, they passing a new law. Basically, they capped the THC, correct?
That's law. Didn't pass law. Passed the House.
Right. We're looking at this, correct?
Right.
So with that being said, it's a 10% cap on all THC products, right? Now the medical industry is up. All the patients are up in a roar, because obviously, what does 10 milligrams of THC do for a patient, really? I mean, what would 10 milligrams do for you, Chad, in this situation if you were in Florida, right?
You'd have to buy more,
Yeah.
Wait, so 10 milligrams over how long of a period of time? Did they limit it to what, a purchase, a month?
No, if I can, it's 10% THC in flower, 15% THC in edibles, 60% for concentrates is the proposed bill. It's not going to get through the Senate. This is a great example of like multiple things. First of all, THC caps and how ridiculous they are. Second of all, sensationalized headlines. They've tried this before. They constantly try this in Florida. It gets to the Republican House. The chair of the Senate Judiciary in Florida, who happens to be a rather libertarian-leaning conservative, has multiple times refused to schedule any of the House's bills that, in what his opinion does, impact the ballot initiative of the state. As that libertarian bent. So this has very, very little, if zero chance of making it through the Senate or ever becoming law. But it's an excellent illustration of Florida's constant attempt to undermine the will of the people by trying to pass these ridiculous restrictions on a ballot initiative. But their Supreme Court, as we've talked about before, constantly strikes these down. So even if this was to somehow miraculously get through the Senate, there's a very strong contingent of very talented cannabis law attorneys who just keep challenging. Every time one makes through, they challenge it to the court throws it out as an improper infringement upon the ballot initiative. But it does highlight a much real serious, which is this concept of we need to cap THC limits now. We're going to arbitrarily pick numbers because of, and it all stems from this, what I believe to be pseudoscience of this cannabis-induced psychosis, which is just the prohibitionists love to pull that out because it just sounds so scary. Oh my God, I'm going to smoke pot, then I could go crazy forever.
We've dispelled that myth. We were dispelling myths.
Oh my God.
And that myth, it is a complete 100% myth, hands down. We
Oh my
dispelled.
God. And the studies that back it up, this Lancet study from March 9, 2019, the most recent, there was one in 2014, observational studies and self-reporting studies of people where they find a connection. I remember statistics 101. Every side class you ever take, correlation does not equal causation. It's just one of the most basic concepts in logical thinking. Just because two things happen to occur does not mean that one makes the other occur. That requires an additional scientific finding. But when it suits the narrative, it's wonderful. It's a great way to say, oh, yeah, we have scientific studies. They were published in the Lancet. What they don't talk about is the incredibly small sample sizes used. The fact that they were observational studies, not controlled studies. And and the fact that they were all funded by people who had an agenda. They wanted a specific finding. Now, when you're a scientist and you're given $3 million by somebody who says, "Here, we're going to give you money. We want this found." There's a very strong incentive to find it. And this is what is so unbelievably frustrating because the people who suffer from this is the patients, as the medical patients who are subjected to these arbitrary limits on their medicine. Based not on good science, but based on fear-mongering propaganda hype. And it's just, we're seeing the same thing in Vermont with cap limits. This is the new thing. It's all right, if we can't beat them, let's limit them, and we just hope that so far, not any of these have really been put into place. The science behind it is not strong. In 2018, the University of Colorado Boulder, there was a team that tried to duplicate the results from a European study. They were unable to do so. There's been a lot of criticism that the European study that this is based on failed to account for alcohol use. Now, if we're going to talk about things that cause, brain damage and psychosis, I would think the alcohol might come slightly before the cannabis, but, hey. I love to see these things come up. I love to see them get shot down. But the problem is that people hear this and it sounds so scary that they latch onto it and they believe it. And that makes our job of normalization and cutting past the propaganda that much harder because nothing is influential in the human psyche. Fear is the ultimate motivator. You make people scared and you can make them do anything. Make people scared, you can make them believe anything.
Yep.
And it's and it's just that constant battle, and we just have to keep on dispelling those myths because what beats fear? Experience and knowledge beat fear. Fear comes from the unknown. We keep doing what we're doing. People like Chad, people like Sherry, people like Justin keep coming at you, Joe. All of us just keep getting that message out. Keep teaching people. Keep educating people, and we can get past ridiculous things like THC caps and bullshit studies.
Well, that's why I want to bring this up because once I saw the 10 milligrams for THC, I was like, wait, come on, hold on. And then we talk about this a lot, Tim, right? And thank you for tailing it off the way you did because I always try to set it up that way because there's so much pro propaganda out there we talk about a lot. We normally don't talk about anything that sits on the Senate until it gets to a Senate floor, because 90% of this shit, or 99% of it, won't even get that far, right? Just because it passed through a House or passed through some other chambers below, it doesn't mean it's going to get through the Senate. Once it gets to the Senate, we've typically seen what happens in most states, and especially in the government, what happens in the Senate when stuff goes there, it just kind of dies. You know what I mean? It just, and then we don't hear from it again. And then what I've been reading and seeing is like, we got like multiple bills being presented in these states, guys. Only one can pass. You know what I mean? Like, so, even though, and only one can get to that floor. So, as much as we want to stand in and support it, which we do need to do, and then find the right things and get involved in your legislature, don't fall for it. You know what I mean? Because like, this is a great headline for that. But it does raise a pertinent question that we have to talk about, because we've seen it in California, right? That's kind of where all these little caps and sizes and things kind of perpetuate from, and then moved on and out, right? So, I mean, Justin, I don't know if you've seen have that issue much out there, where it's you do have caps and ways you can buy things, but or maybe not.
Not in LA, in New Hampshire.
right. Here's my question for Tim. Here's my question for Sherry, right? And then we have Chad to back this up, right? We're putting caps on things, and like you said, patient access caps. Like, we're telling the patient they can only take this much medicine, right? Now we have Chad over here taking oxycodone at whatever rate the doctor tells him, right? We have Sister Suzanne taking how much, fentanyl, and like this is prescribed. So like, honestly, in all the cases that we hear about, it's overprescribed, right? So like, it's not like Chad can go and change his prescription around for himself. You know what I mean? It's doctors, it's recommended, it's whatever. Does he have to take it? No, but like, you're your doctor, right? You're my doctor. You're supposed to tell me what's right and help me fix myself, right? Like you said, Sherry, the most trusted profession in all professions, really, right? But
are doctors.
yeah, you know what I mean?
There's one
So
I was just reading on cannabis-induced psychosis by one of the original members, who recommends treatment for cannabis-induced psychosis being acute psychopharmacological interventions, mainly benzodiazepines and second-generation antipsychotics. So when you get this cannabis-induced psychosis, you must immediately start a heavy and hard regimen of mind-altering pharmaceuticals from Eli Lilly. Just read this. I can't even believe it. It's something out of it's just insane. It's insane. And I just, what I feel really bad for is the poor people, the poor kids who like, parents have like dragged them to this and they buy it. And now they're loading these kids up with and all, for no reason. It's almost as bad as being arrested and incarcerated, being pumped full of pharmaceutical pills because you have cannabis-induced psychosis.
they want you back in the cycle, right? I mean,
well, it's the drug, pharmaceutical, medical, trauma. It's that loop. You're constantly in that loop. Patients are in that loop. I call it the drain, circling the drain of despair, prescribing more and more and more, and, and adding on top and shuffling to different physicians. And then I want to talk about that whole narcotic contract thing. Was absolutely ridiculous. At one point in time, I was on over 18 pharmaceuticals. This is interesting. And trying to come off of them using cannabis. And I told my doctor, but you know what she said to me? She goes, if I test you and those other drugs are not in your system, that's a red flag that you're probably selling them. I was like, you're telling me that I need to, so I'm trying to come off of Adderall, Ativan, Xanax, Percocet, gabapentin, all of these drugs. So you're telling me that I'm trying to come off them using cannabis, but you're telling me that I won't be able to get them a dose at all so I can continue to wean myself unless I'm positive for the drugs that you prescribed? That is so backwards. It doesn't make any sense. So basically I'd have to go and get my prescription and I'd pop a pill, the pills, just so I could get my prescription, and then I continue weaning off. Once I weaned off, I was off. That was it. I was done. I was like,
I mean, I see Chad. I see Chad shaking his head through all this, because literally this sounds like this story we just heard from Chad, right? This perpetual issues and cycles that we go on. especially within our medical community, backed by, as we all know very well, pharma. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, especially if you go to a larger system. Now, this was in his hometown too. You know what I mean? So it's like it started there, right?
Hometown.
Yeah, you there, and she's right. That, I mean, that was the same thing that I was told. You have to have these pills. You have to have certain levels in your blood or your urine, or you don't get the pills. And if you have any levels of THC in your system, we're taking you off the pills.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier before with even like the methadone clinics and stuff like that. Like this is a threat that they're giving out to these people who are trying to change their lives. They're in a fucking clinic trying to clean up themselves, and you won't let them access better medicine or even consider, you know, using them together. You know what I mean? Like, why can't we use these things together? Instead, they just want to prescribe you more and more and more. And like you were saying, Chad, as I was hearing your story, the levels start going up, right? Because you're getting used to this pain. I'm sure Sherry can tell us the medical science behind all this. But as you continue to use these opioids, not only are you know, accepting the levels that you need to take and you're going up, but you're also killing yourself, right? I mean, these things have serious side effects, right? I mean, you're going to take an opioid to help your stomach or your intestinal tract, which is probably going to destroy your intestinal tract or your stomach at the same time, right?
No pooping anymore. There you go. Constipation. Yeah, bad news. Not good.
I mean, nobody wants to talk about it, but let's be real here. I mean, these are real things that we face every day in real life. I mean, I'm sure everybody's had a fucking bowel issue at one point in their life. Come on, right?
Worst ever.
But you know, imagine being in Chad's shoes where you had to go through how many years, Chad? 7 years of
It was 6. But the thing is, I had digestive issues where I couldn't quit going. So, you know, it kind of balanced out for a little while, but you know, as you keep increasing on your pharmaceuticals, your body definitely gets used to that and you build a tolerance. Well, if your pain levels don't subside anymore, they're putting you on even more and even more. And now you're getting relatively close to overdose. How in the hell can that be good for you?
I don't.
No, Chad, you guys all bring up a good point. Like with New Hampshire, one of the biggest issues that I always ran into when I would work with cannabis was, you know, a lot of the work that New Hampshireites do is manual labor. I mean, you work in HVAC, you work in construction, you work in landscaping or automotive, and you go to work, you pull out your back, and you go see the doctor, and then the doctor tells you, hey, we're going to put you on a bunch of painkillers. Well, now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place where if you're going to work in pain, you know, you're going to work, it's going to suck. But if you take those painkillers, then it's going to, you know, you're going to risk a developed dependency for it. And that's always such a thing. I mean, you look at New Hampshire too, it's one of the biggest companies is PillPack. It's like right in Manchester. So, you know, it's a lot of things going on. And, you know, for those of you who work, or for those of you who do literally anything and you require those painkillers, you're going through the same motions of your day. You just don't feel the pain. And that's obviously stressing and making things worse. You're not changing it up. You gotta kind of still use those muscles or whatever it is that's hurting you. So it doesn't do anything but cover it up. And you know, when you look at why New Hampshire doesn't want to legalize, well, it's because another major industry is the medical industry. I mean, again, you know, going back, PillPack is an extremely huge company within New Hampshire. It's one of the highest, run by Amazon, and they just went for it instantly. And then all of Catholic Medical Center, right in the heart of Manchester, is getting like doubled in size. And so you're just like, how is this? Like, it seems like you're keeping cannabis away to make money. Like, that's really all it comes down to, is the people we trust are not really doing it to help us. They're doing it to make
cannabis lobbyists, buddy. Pharmaceuticals. It's one of the number one. It's one of the number one, you know, industries in America. And don't tell me that they're not making money. They're making billions of dollars. And they're perpetuating it.
Yeah, it produces its own cycle of
There are
things. It's
heroin
like
manufacturers making the wean-off drug for heroin in our country. Like, what? How fucked up is that? Dude?
yeah, yeah. It's like
No, just stop making the fucking drugs.
yeah.
There we go.
It is.
Boom.
It's true. And like we get, I think that the state of New Hampshire gets like $50 million a year to fight the opiate, federal money, federal dollars. And all I've seen is larger police forces from that. I haven't, nobody, if you look through, you know, public records, you just see cops making 6 figures. And it's like Goffstown. You're like, there's nothing there, dude. Like, you know, and so that's like a huge thing. And all they're doing is arresting people for weed. The reason they get that $50 million is because, you know, they bust people still for marijuana. It's one of the easiest things you can do. And that's why I think, you know, legalization for New Hampshire is so important, because it takes the money out of the feds and puts it into us business owners going, hey, look, we can afford that with $68 million extra dollars. And, you know, we can fund these rehabilitation centers. We can fund this. The power is in our hands and not the government, especially for a state like New Hampshire, live free or die. I mean, come on. You can't, yeah, it's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, the good thing about, all right, so one of the things I want to talk about too on the news headlines this week was the California Senate Public Safety Committee approved a bill to end mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug crimes. This is something that we were talking about last week, and, you know, we're starting to see this happening again. Here we are talking about, you know, potentially getting a drug crime for not taking or consuming cannabis, right? And not taking your medicines and all. Like, it just fathoms me about how the system is built to like keep you in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't want to let you go. It's I don't think it's really a system made to heal people, right? But we could argue that with Sherry all day long. But with Tim, you know, mandatory minimum sentences. We talked about this last week a little bit. Nonviolent drug crimes. Is this going to be the new trend that we're going to start to see a lot of states really starting to apply to? I mean, why do we still have these minimum sentences?
No, you know, I think they're starting to fade away. You know, mandatory minimum sentences were the hot thing back, you know, 30 years ago, in the tough war on drugs, war on hard on crime, tough on crime. And, you know, actually, a lot of them were implemented in 1994 on President Clinton and his just as criminal, a ridiculous police powers bill that increased federal sentencing and really is credited as being one of the major catalysts for the surge in prison population we see today. That was actually enacted by a Democrat, who a lot of people think, you know, really bad judgment, really bad act. That instituted a lot of mandatory minimums. Mandatory minimum was the hot thing. Again, fear-based. Oh my God, let's lock them up. They need to be locked up forever. Blah, 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 blah. They're not helpful. Have a scientific study after, you know, study after study, and I mean real studies, you know, have just shown they do very little for recidivism. They don't stop people from doing drugs. They don't have any real big impact. What they do is remove discretion from judges. So the ability to look at any individual case and judge it for its merits is taken away. And you have time after time of judges saying, I would have never done this. My hands are tied. I have no choice. You see this most in the federal system. But a lot of states have implemented these mandatory minimums as well. Thankfully, it is starting to sink through for various reasons. Even on the other side, they're starting to see now, well, if they're mandatory minimums, they all have to get locked up, which causes, you know, incredibly high correction rates. And all of a sudden, we're paying a ton of money to lock up people who shouldn't be locked up by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, it's starting to realize that they're just not efficient and they're not an effective method, but it's hard. It's hard to get legislatures to reduce penalties. It's like one of those things, every step you take, you just go forward, you know, you never go back. At least that's the concept of a lot of these. So trying to get a legislature to do away with mandatory minimums, reduce sentencing, that is always a really, really tough sell. Because why? Law enforcement comes out and force, we can't do that. If you do that, oh my God, they're gonna go crazy. We're gonna lose, societal collapse. You know, and you've got a lot of special interests, whether it's private prisons, whether, you know, the drug and, or, you know, rehab contingent. There's a lot of money in incarceration. There's a lot of money in, you know, these ridiculous sentences. There's a lot of money in, you know, mandatory state dictated programs that are privately run for profit. So there's a lot of, you know, force behind keeping mandatory minimums in place. But I do believe overall, people are realizing this isn't the way to do it, especially for drugs. more and more now. What we're seeing a lot more than new mandatory minimums being implemented is drug decriminalization and legalization initiatives pop up. Because people are really, everybody, even the people who just have their, head stuck in the sand are seeing it's not working. We've arrested the hell out of more people than, you could possibly fathom, and nothing has really changed. So maybe a new way to approach this. It's only taken 40 years to sink in to some people, but yeah, not everyone. You still have the ardent, drug warriors who will just go down saying every single person who uses a drug needs to be locked up forever.
Yep. Which is amazing. But we talk about decriminalization, right? Arkansas, again, we've talked about Arkansas a lot lately because it's just kind of like out of left field. Here's the last thought about people getting involved in the cannabis game. And they're doing better things in New Hampshire. Sorry, New Hampshire. But
poor Justin, we just beat up on New Hampshire.
Justin just from
No,
New
it's fine.
Hampshire.
That's fine.
So poke some fun at him. He literally
I'm in
moved
LA
out
now.
to California and said, like, forget this. He did the right thing. But we're talking about Arkansas, right? So Arkansas is introducing the marijuana decriminalization bill, guys. So keep an eye out for Arkansas and what's going on there. There's a lot of unique things going on. One of the things I want to talk about, it's just a proposal in a bill, which kind of made me laugh today because in New York they an assembly member actually introduced a bill to decriminalize mushrooms, right? Like we can't even get fucking homegrown going, and here comes mushrooms again, right? So do you think, Tim, like in all honesty, do you think they're gonna go and just get rid of everything now? I mean, is this something that they should be looking at? Like we see it happening, the chairs in DC right now too, right?
I think we are seeing, and I think we're going to continue to see a paradigm shift, a shift in perception on drugs, drug use, drug addiction, drug criminalization. I think that pendulum is incredibly slowly, but slowly swinging away from the hardcore incarceration, lock them all up, mandatory minimum sentencing, truth in sentencing, and you need to do more time for drug possession than you do for sexual assault mentality, which is, again, it's just it's insane. It's crazy to think how we've gotten here. And, it's a story, boiling water, you're in a pot of kettle and it's just slowly getting warmer and warmer and warmer and you never realize it until the water's boiling and you're dead. That's where we've gotten to with these ridiculous drug laws, which is a little bit, and then it slowly grew into this thing that's just out of control now. And I think that pendulum is swinging. Do I think that New York is going to legalize mushrooms anytime soon? Probably not. I was really hoping for marijuana until the governor couldn't keep his hands to himself, which probably that alone is probably going to ruin New York for at least another year. But with the initiatives we're seeing all over, with Oregon now, with Washington being introduced, these things always start on the West Coast. I think there's still a little more of that, just original Puritan kind of conservatism on the East Coast. And people are going to, again, as things pass, as things become implemented, as decriminalization takes effect, you're not going to see what the prohibitionists all are trying to make everybody scared of. Civilization's not going to end. The sky's not going to fall. People are going to get up and they're going to go to work and they're going to live their lives. And most people who use any substance will use it responsibly, and some won't. And some will need treatment because they would need treatment with anything because there's an underlying issue that causes addiction. But most people won't. Most people will use it responsibly, like they use alcohol responsibly or cannabis or anything else. And they'll go to work and they'll come home and they'll live their lives. And, as we see more and more of that, that also dispels the fear. It takes away the arguments of the prohibitionists. And I think slowly you will see that expand. I think the grassroots, movement we've seen on cannabis, and just like you're saying, Arkansas, Mississippi, South Dakota, North Dakota, these states that traditionally we would never equate with legalization, the people are, pushing this through. And so I do think we are seeing that pendulum swing. I don't think it's going to happen quick. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. But I do think that it will slowly happen and the momentum will build. And we will get past a place someday, hopefully in my lifetime, hopefully in all of our lifetimes, where drugs are no longer treated as a criminal matter, but drugs are an adult matter where overuse or problematic use is treated as a health condition.
I mean, we have these issues that we see right now with legalized substances like alcohol, which is a substance, cigarettes, nicotine, a substance, right? And there's lots of systems and support for those. And like you said, we talked about last week, we went into detail last week about the smoking, right? Like, I mean, you look at where we are now compared to where we were 10, 15 years ago on smoking. I mean, everybody's smoking in cars, everybody's smoking on the streets, and then we just slowly pegged away and it just kind of took a little bit and then a little bit and a little bit. And everybody said, you know what, hey, there's a health issue here. It's amazing what happens when people actually open their eyes and listen to a few things, right? They're like, oh, no, it's not gonna happen to me. He died, that guy died. Oh yeah, they died. I'm not gonna die doing this, right? Heroin, cigarettes, the perpetual motion things. Like, even in Chad's position, the biggest things we don't talk about is people that's out of their control, right? Like, it wasn't Chad's choice to go get in a car accident, end up in the hospital, end up with an addiction to a pharmaceutical. It had to happen to a best friend of mine growing up. Same thing, got in a car accident, got morphine, got addicted, right? And he was like what Chad was saying, just constant hallucinations, pain, things like this. And then he gets out of the hospital, and what do? They hand him bottles of it. Right. And it's like kind of like what you guys said. Now you have multiple choices. Do you sell it and get in trouble? Do you consume it all because you need it and go ask for more because you need it and get in trouble? Or do you fucking OD on it? Now, sadly, we see a lot of people OD on it. I mean, opioids is one of the #1 killers in our country, right? And we're still prescribing it like candy to people like Chad, right? And we're not allowing him access to a safe plant that's not killing anybody. Like, we didn't have any overdoses on cannabis today. How many people overdosed on an opioid today by 5:54 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time? Let's talk about this, right? Nobody's dying from it, right? We got Chad back, guys, because of cannabis. Like, this is the one thing I really want to stress to people. He was given a time frame. You know what I mean? A typical time frame for all of his issues that he sustained from having a car accident. So it wasn't like he chose this. It wasn't a path he took. He was prescribed. He listened. He did what the doctors told him to do to be better, and then he didn't get better. This is something that we've heard a lot in the show lately, because we've had a lot of great patients on with different stories, but it all kind of seems to fall back into this medical thing. And now we have Sherry here, who's a medical nurse who's been in the system for a long time, who's trying to fight and get those rights back for treatment and care, right? I mean, Chad, for you, quick question for you, and then I want Sherry to kind of answer the same question, would be, how do you feel about your level of treatment? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like, and then, for Sherry is, where are we at with levels of treatment for somebody like Chad? I mean, these are the questions I want to know and the answers, because I mean, for patients, we talk about patients' rights all the time. Whether you're a cannabis patient, you're a fucking patient, dude. You know what I mean? If Chad has to take oxycodones, dude, you're a patient, in my opinion, right? Like, it's the same tender. It needs to be the same care. It needs to be the same approach. It needs to be the same open-minded and general understanding. Now, the one thing I love talking about is we don't have an oxycodone system in our bodies, right? We don't have a opioid system in our bodies. This is something that, we kind of laugh about, but legitimately, we don't. You know what I mean? Morphine, we don't need it, right? I mean, and then now here's a patient that actually took those severe pains that you've had. And Chad, I've had, when I had my head injury, I had severe stomach pains. I couldn't stand up. I feel for you there. Cannabis is what allows me to get up and move and eat and consume and stand up like a normal person every day. We all have we have these issues, right? And a lot of us do. We share it. For you, the medical system. Let's talk about that, because you obviously had to live it. I mean, you're in the middle of it. How do you feel? Were people listening to you? Did you not ask the questions? I mean, where were you at that point in time?
I was sent home to remain comfortable until I died on the pain. So that tells you all you need to know, I think. I mean, if I would have continued that course of treatment, I would not be here right now. We wouldn't be doing this interview.
Yeah, I agree. Same here.
Hallelujah to you change. Hallelujah to you being open-minded enough to try and to say it's still worth it, right? I mean, at that point, I can't imagine what you're thinking about that point. You face a couple different facts. Either in your head, you must be thinking, am I going to live like this forever? Like, is this really how it goes out for me? Like,
yeah, I mean, I had a hospital bed in my living room, and I laid in that bed. It seemed like an eternity, honestly. And I have children, and, trying to watch them grow up and just thinking, and this is it, it was rough. And, to me, I didn't know at that point in time, okay, yeah, the thoughts go through your head. Do I just go ahead and eat this bottle of oxycodone and get it over with? I mean, that definitely crosses your mind several times. Or do you find something else and fight? And once I did the glycerin tincture and knew that I could lower my dose, you know, there was nothing going to stop me from finding something stronger to help me eliminate the dose.
Yeah.
And, you know, here we are. So
what are you doing now, Chad, to maintain your health right now? I mean, we talk about tincture oils, you talk about being an herbalist, you know, you talk about being a consumer. What are you using? Is it a mixture of everything? Is it still the oil that works for you? What's been the best thing for you that you found?
You know, what I've come to realize now that I'm a little older and all, and smoking flower is my least favorite way to consume at this point. I absolutely love it. However, I do experience a lot of anxiety anymore, regardless of what, if it's an indica or a sativa. I don't know why, but I do. And back to when I was driving with a doobie, yeah, don't smoke and drive. I wasn't saying anybody should do that. I was just saying, you know, as a scenario. But anyway, I do consume oil still. I feel like I have to. You know, if I don't know what will happen. I may die. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I do infusions. I like coconut oil infusions, olive oil infusions, and incorporate it with my food. That's my favorite way to do it anymore is, but I do take, you know, capsules and put some oil in it and take it also. But and that's my main treatment now is oil.
I have a question, Chad. So being an herbalist, what other types of tinctures, herbs that you incorporate? Because I know, you know, with cannabis, you know, you're into other plants, and I'm complete 100% in favor. I call my cannabis my phytobotanical nutrients, and I like to combine it with other herbs and supplements. And so what are some of the things that you've found that have worked for you? Because
you know, my favorite herb, besides cannabis, is chamomile, because chamomile, it pretty much mimics the cannabis plant and healing properties, except for you don't get high. You know, a lot of people are like, well, just take CBD. And, well, you know, I get my CBD in my oil when I take my full extract. So why do I need to add more CBD? But, you know, you can make an extract with the chamomile flowers, an alcohol reduction, just like you do full extract cannabis oil. And if you mix that with a little coconut oil, put it in capsules, there's your sleeping pills. You know, that's what you're going to sleep. That's your nighttime dose of, you know, your herb. Chamomile is by far my favorite and my go-to. I do make tinctures of several different, you know, herbs and stuff, but I don't know. I would definitely go with chamomile being my favorite compared to anything else at this point, besides cannabis. I mean, plus I have legal access to chamomile.
Right. It makes it a lot easier, right? Well, you know, I was going to kind of ask you almost the same thing. Like, what does your diet persist of now? Are you back to like just a normal regular diet, or do you have to watch a lot of things that you're consuming?
You know, that I still consume. There for a while, I didn't eat much of anything, but it took a long time to introduce foods back into my system. Which what surprised me is salads. I never could really digest salads and stuff, and once I started consuming infused olive oil in my salads, it seemed to be just fine. So, but I do eat a little healthier. There was a time where that's all I could do was eat, you know, fresh greens all the time, and I ate a salad, for lunch at barber school every day. I mean, it was awkward if I went to school and didn't have a salad with me. But but yeah, now I can go out and eat a cheeseburger at a restaurant if I want to, but yeah, and you know, repercussions are repercussions, but
good, going down, then the next day.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a great point that we talk about a lot. It's just, you can introduce so many other herbs into your diet without even thinking about it very easily. that are beneficial for you. Like, you know, Sherry was up shooting last week. I gave her my tea concoction. I love to make for patients that, you know, if made right, it has a heavy dose of CBD or THC, whatever you want it, but it's honey and tea and ginger. And
So
they
good.
didn't really give us a turmeric because I couldn't find it, but you know, you put turmeric in it, and like, you know, there you go. There's a great, get you up going and make your body feel great. No, you know, achy joints, and you know, it's an anti-inflammatory, so it works great. You know what I mean? And like, you know, these are things as a chef, you know, years ago, like I used to love to, you know, I base a lot of my foods around that, you know, because we're working with a lot of healthy minded people, athletes, things like that. Like you know, the best things, you know, you were talking about before was, I laugh about this because I used to go get as high as I could before I went to basketball practice, right? You know, Justin's talking about going surfing, getting high. You're talking about, you know, running and that runner's high. Like, you know, we talk about pro athletes, which, you know, we're seeing every day a new pro athlete jumping into the cannabis game, right? Now, we have Seth Rogen. Hey, Seth Rogen, and we who wasn't expecting that to happen, right? But you know, we've had some, you know, Al Horford's, or not Horford's, but oh man, let me think of his last name real quick. You know, these guys are jumping in because they're using, right? A lot of these football players, even a couple of years ago, even when we started the show, we had a couple of football players sit out for a season because they were protesting the use of cannabis, right? Because it, you know, just like Chad, you get to a certain point where the medicine isn't working, right? And the doctors don't want to hear it, and then they try one more last thing, they don't want to hear it. The next thing you know, like you said, they send you home and they put you on a bed and say, "See ya, kid." You know what I mean? Good luck, and we're here if you need us. And where does that leave you, right? But one thing I want to talk to Tim about before we wrap up the show is, you know, at least Chad now, I believe you could probably go to Hawaii and get some medicine. So I think they just, the Senate approved a bill to legalize marijuana, as well as separate legislation to expand the state's current cannabis decriminalization law, right? So they both passed with veto-proof minorities. I want to make sure I vet this article right.
Majorities.
Oh, but minorities, right? I need glasses. Sherry, she's got my glasses. I don't know what to tell you guys. These computer screens, right? But no, what's going on in Hawaii, Tim? I mean, this is great for them, correct?
Yeah, no, this is excellent. You know, again, this is the exact opposite. It's got through the Senate. It is what's considered dead on arrival in their House of Representatives. In the legislative process, we've already got two bodies. This is the compromise. But it, you know, again, it's like we talk about every time one of these bills gets passed, every time there is momentum, it shows that it's inevitable. This is simply now a matter of a few people being not reelected, a few new members of the House of Representatives being elected, and now we have it. It shows that there is a will, that there are people, that there are politicians who are moving this forward, and you know, it is encouraging. So I love to see it. You know, Hawaii has been one of those states where, you know, just most people would think, you know, it was either legal already or it should be legal. It would make a lot of sense for it to be legal. Yet again, there is still a strong conservative, you know, part of the population who elect representatives who are still, you know, have this kind of mentality of danger and drugs. But again, you know, if you ask me 5 years from now, Hawaii will be legal. And I think this is a good show of that. I think the things holding it up, making it dead on arrival again, as we saw so often at the federal level, one or two politicians in positions of power who refused to call a vote, who refused to let a bill, you know, come to the floor for even debate or discussion. And when you got that type of situation, as much as it's really horrible that a few people can hold up things like this, once those people are gone, it often allows for the facilitation of it. So I'd love to see it. I think, you know, legal cannabis industry would be fantastic for Hawaii. I would see it mimic Vermont very much in terms of a destination state and a craft cannabis industry. I think it would be a great social equity program to give back to the native Hawaiians who've had so much taken from them. You know, a licensing preference scheme or some sort of ability to make this a local business would, you know, I just think there's a lot of opportunities in Hawaii. So I hope that their House of Representatives gets their shit together, so to say, and they can get this through in the next year or two.
Well, it's just amazing to see the statistics across the country right now, right? Between overall country support, right? But I know in Indiana, they got what, 71% or better, Chad, support for cannabis legalization from the reports I was reading.
Yeah, I think
you
the
know,
last thing I think the last thing I seen was 74%, but you know, we did a process as well. You know, we're a non-ballot initiative state, and you know, can't get a hearing. We can't get You know, we can't get a hearing. What do you do?
Right, but you keep banging on the door, and then eventually somebody will open it, right? Hopefully you get a new face that answers it, though. Like Tim was saying, you know, we unfortunately have to wait it out and just keep reminding people that we're here, right? Which sucks though, because you know we see Rhode Island, we see Maryland. Maryland has 67% support. You guys are up in the high 70s. Most of these states that we're talking about are in the 70s, right? But we can't get past that one roadblock. You know what I mean? I'm sure New Hampshire's at like 98%. I guarantee fucking is the governor and everybody that controls the Senate. You know,
it's always been the governor. It's always been, no matter like Republican or Democrat, it's always just been the governor. And you're like, come on, dude. Like,
but that's the thing that we talk about Republican, Democrats, and then obviously we know there's the sides that both these guys take. We don't like to really push it on the show because we don't care. I don't care. You know what I mean? Right. It's a pissing fest to me. It just gets annoying. But anyways. In Wyoming, right? Wyoming, Tim, right? They're coming up in strong. This is another state we don't talk about. Wyoming, which is a beautiful state to have cannabis in. Oh my God, I want to go to Wyoming now. But their cannabis bill is being sponsored by Republicans. I'm really interested to see what happens with where this bill goes, because I think that's probably the first time I've ever seen a Republican-supported bill that's to do cannabis. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, I don't know if I'm not 100% sure if it's the first or, but certainly this is a new trend. This is the thing we're starting to see for the first time, which I've always talked about. This isn't really within the Republican Party. It's such a scattered, different thought, pools of people. It's a very scattered party. You have libertarians, you have, the hardcore Trumpers, you have the patriots, you have the fiscal conservative socially, there's a lot of different kind of things going on with today's Republican Party. So it's really hard to say that, all Republicans are going to be against this or for it. And what we're seeing is the more libertarian minded younger Republicans are actually supporting cannabis reform. Sometimes for very different reasons, so social equity not being a real high priority for them, but whether it's revenue, whether it's freedom to do what you want, whatever kind of mindset they have on why they're supporting this, we're starting to see that happen more and more. Wyoming being an excellent example, and I think we're going to see that even as kind of the old guard retire/die, and a younger, who kind of, at least in terms of this concept, a lot more progressive coming up. That I think is also going to really facilitate a greater acceptance of cannabis, both medicinal and adult use across the country in the next 5 to 10 years.
No, I'm really excited. I think, again, we talked about last week, I think it's 6 states that we're looking at potential legalization in this coming year, in 2021, which is huge, especially continue talking about COVID and everything that's been going on in the world. Hopefully states get this passed. Now, one place I want to talk to you about, Tim, because it seems like I feel confused just by reading the articles, and it's Mexico, right? Because it seems like, again, we take 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. They're changing a bunch of stuff. They're throwing things in the mix. I mean, it sounds exciting as hell, but what's going on right now today in Mexico is they just approved a revised cannabis legalization bill, and the floor is expected to talk about it today. I know here we are again talking about the Senate and the floors and stuff like that, but this is Mexico, and this is a real deal, right? Because this is a huge, I mean, just like America would be, difference in everything they do there. We're just talking about cannabis, right?
Right. If you think the U.S. legislative process is tough, and I am by no means an expert on Mexican parliamentary process or legislative process. We actually have a very close colleague of ours down in Mexico at one of the law firms, cannabis lawyer down there, who we email back and forth, and we got a really excited one today. Every time I get a really excited one from him, I know it's actually a major step and a major hurdle that's been passed. And apparently what was passed was a major hurdle. A vote on one of their governing bodies in what's called the Chamber of Deputies, I believe, so this was a very, very big hurdle that has now been overcome. There's a little more debate, a few more maybe modifications, but then it goes back to the full Senate, which should be the final vote. It just brings the reality of legalization that much closer. And, Mexico, again, it's an inevitability. Their Supreme Court in 2018 ruled that this needed to happen. There's been multiple extensions, but there is making progress. It's not like been railroaded and nothing's been done on it. And this was just another example of yet some more progress being made. And there's a good chance that this could get finalized and done this year. which would be enormous. I mean, you know, it would be the third nation to fully legalize cannabis, you know, the second major nation, you know, people consider. And so we'll see what happens. I would love this to progress farther. I know my colleague is very, very excited about it. I know a lot of people are very excited about it. I think it's going to be a good opportunity to show that a lot of the issues surrounding drug trafficking in Mexico are based and are in large part created by prohibition.
Well, that's one thing we're seeing a huge drop in right now is what's going on over the border, right? Because legalization in the United States happened in a rapid rate, so we're not
profitable.
Demand, right? Exactly, right.
It's not profitable. Why is it not profitable? Because it's no longer a controlled substance. It's no longer outlawed in a lot of states, you know. So when you take away the economic incentive, you know, we learned this in Prohibition. We just have really, really short attention spans,
Right.
you know, when it comes to these type of things. So again, this will be fantastic. I think it's going to really buffer the argument that, you know, decriminalization, and regulation is the way to go. Common sense regulation.
They passed it. They did it. So the Mexican Chamber of Deputies, you're correct, today approved the bill to legalize marijuana nationwide. So guys, that just came out while we were on the show. I was trying to wait for that headline to pop up before the show so I could come to you live. That's on Marijuana Moment if you want to check it out. Tim, real quick. So congratulations to them. I mean, I don't know what this means. We're going to read about it. I mean, there's still some lawmakers debating possible issues and stuff like that, which I'm sure, which we're going to see in every area that goes legal, right, Tim? I mean,
there's always tweaks. There's always special interest. I believe their Chamber of Deputies has over 500 members. You know, there's always going to be, and you know, whatever procedures allow for the last minute tweaking. And but again, you know, it's seeing things like this. You need to see momentum. If they stall, if they've gone 6 months and there's been no hearings, no votes, it hasn't been called to the floor, that's a bad sign. When you're seeing votes happen, when you're seeing it clear committees, when you're seeing it move forward, it may be, you know, glacially slow, but at least there's forward momentum, and we are seeing this. And again, this being a rather major hurdle to overcome. So I believe, and again, I'm not an expert on Mexican Parliament, but I do believe that once this gets back to the Senate and the full Senate vote, that will be the final vote before it goes to the president for signature. So that's, again, we're very close. They're very close, and it's very exciting for them. I can't wait to see, because I really believe that this is going to be very good for, you know, Mexican people.
And as we talk about, you know, the Senates and the floors and the procedures that bills has to go through, and everybody's going crazy in Mississippi right now. Their House just killed the Senate, their alternate medical marijuana proposal. So I mean, it's as fast as it can look great, guys, it can go away that quick too. You know what I mean? So really make sure you
court challenge whether they have the authority to do that. You know, I mean, this does. It goes back and forth. It goes back and forth, and this is why, you know, it has been. You just have to every inch we have to fight for, every inch we have to claw for, because they're, you know, the prohibitionists are stacked so against us. They've been so indoctrinated with these lies. They're so blinded to the reality of this plant for various reasons. You know, there's a lot of money behind stopping legalization from a lot of different sectors too. And so, you know, we got to claw, we got to fight every inch. But you know what? Again, what have we seen? We've seen 16 states in the last 10 years legalized for adult use. We've seen, you know, the support for medical cannabis polling at 90% consistently across this country. We've seen people start to wake up and start to realize a lot of what they've been told is simply not true. You know, when one of these politicians comes out with the gateway theory now, they look like an idiot. You know, even most media sources start laughing at them at this point. You know, the widely discredited. You know, 5 years ago you weren't seeing that widely discredited before that. You know, because the majority is now coming around. 51% of Republicans even support legalization now. Just last year, for the first time ever, you have the majority of both political parties supporting this. And, you know, and that's where we're heading. That's the future. So that's why I have such a positive outlook, is that even though it's slow, even though we keep getting these challenges, even though they keep trying to, you know, put caps on THC limits or stop smokable flower and do this and do that, they're losing more often than they're winning. And we're winning more often than we're losing. So that's the exciting thing to me. It just can't happen fast enough, because there's still too many patients in states that do not have access to the medicine that would make their life better. In some cases, save their life. And that's unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sweep somebody like a Chad Padgett under the rug, right? Like, he's in our face, he's there. You can't use a science or oh, there's no proof, there's no written evidence, there's no nothing. He's sitting there right in front of you saying, I am healed, right? So it's hard to ignore this as we hear more and more of these stories, right, guys?
Yep. The
I mean, that's why
future of healthcare is patient empowerment, right? We're going to reach a critical mass in the community, and then it's going to ooze.
we need to make that shift even in our own healthcare system. And Sherry, you talk about it a lot. And obviously, you know, here's another patient talking about the same thing, same issues, same categories of concern that we need to look at our healthcare system, right? Again, it's not an easy job. We don't want to tell anybody that we think their job is any glamorous in any way. You know what I mean? It's these guys are working 20 hours a day. It's a system. And just like anything else, they need to do what they're trained to do and taught to do, just like a police officer or anybody else in any sort of thing, having to write you a ticket for smoking a little bit of weed on the side of the road, whether they want to or not. You know, they got to do what they got to do. You know what I mean? The thing that bothers me is the healthcare. You know, like I said, Tim hit the thing on the head, and we were talking about it before, Sherry. It's like, what is real scientific proof and evidence, and what is the real life evidence that's right in front of my face? Chad Padgett's, you know what I mean, and Sister Suzanne's, and all these people we've had on these shows that have just poured out their stories to us and seen these issues. When do the doctors start to stop looking at the textbook and start looking at the patient? How do we make that shift?
Well, it's the, like I said, you know, patients' experiences should be driving the research. If you think about it, right? These anecdotal stories that you're hearing over and over and over again is what should be researched, because that's when you hear it this many times, it's just absurd. When I'm looking at some of the research that does exist, that's only studying one single isolated molecule and not looking at all the other patient variables. You have to look at the whole picture, and they're not. So the anecdotal stories, and it's just going to take time, you know, and I look every day in research. I'm looking and looking and looking, and you can see when we do our Terpene Tuesdays and some of our talks, we're actually looking at the amount of studies we want to find, and we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg. There's so much work that needs to be done, but these are the stories. Your show and all of us sharing our compelling stories of healing with the plant. It has to be looked at. I mean, the community is going to demand it. And then people, you know, I was telling a story before, like all last year when we were certifying patients, I was certifying doctors in the community, and I'd ask them, and I'd be like, you're getting your medical card. That's nice. How did you hear about us? You take care of one of my patients. Okay. So it's slowly, so the patients are, and that's why we're so adamant as nurses about educating the patients in a right way. And we're so adamant about, we are more than willing and happy to call your doctor up and have a conversation. Yeah.
Well, let's lead us right into our next segment really quick here, because we're getting low on time. And this is a little extended segment, but it's full of valuable information and kind of lines up with Chad. It's kind of great. All of our segments kind of line up with people that are, you know, in Chad's situation, what could help you. You know, this week we're talking about, on Canna Talk, colon, right? So colons and cannabis. It sounds kind of funny, and I like saying it, but it's a serious issue, right? You know, and like, you know, and we heard Chad, you know, Chad's story, he had issues with his digestive tract, right, which is your colon and your lower and upper intestinal systems and stuff like that, right, where you know, you can have natural issues, you can have just an accident, right, and all these things can start triggering all these other issues, and then end up with a cancer effect, right? So, and then you're talking about studies. Another great example is in the segment we talk about the studies, what's real, what's not, and what we're reading from, right? The real studies, not the propagated studies, not the, hey, I think or I wishes or could be's, you know what I mean? Which, you know, could it maybe? Yeah, but like, you know, like we see right now in the world, we have to be really cautious of how we talk about the properties of cannabis, right? The DEA will come and sue you. You know what I mean? They'll launch a lawsuit. And by the way, all 6 of those companies from last year are still under investigation, going through it, right? So, fun article I just read today. So, anyways, side note, we have colons and cannabis, right? So another great segment, guys. This, I think, is something that people experience more often than not, right? We all kind of laugh and joke about it, but I think we've all had issues. We eat hot food, you know. I don't know how many people we've talked to in my life that have bowel issues, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. You know, there's always something somebody can't eat, right? Like what can't you not eat, right? You know, it can agitate these issues, right? That's why I love to hear in chat talk about the properties that cannabis has when coming off of these issues, and then being somebody in those positions where, for me, it's like we're talking against a stigma, right? Because everybody thinks we are people that want to eat and consume and be like what Justin was talking about with that strain today, just fucking stuff our faces and be fat and lazy on a couch and be unhealthy, right? Where everybody in this panel is talking about going to be active and enjoying our cannabis and making it part of an active lifestyle, which balances out what's your favorite thing to talk about, Sherry, is the umbrella, the endocannabinoid system, right?
Cannabinoid system, yes. And so that's why we're doing these health awareness. So every month there's a ton of health awareness themes. And so we're focusing on these themes to educate health professionals that the endocannabinoid system plays a part in every single one of these health awareness themes. And so we picked colons because it's Colon Cancer Awareness Month. And we actually talked about a terpene on Tuesday that actually works really well. It's been shown in some studies to have anti-cancer effects. So colons and cannabis.
So guys, take care of your colon. Here it is with Can Talk today with the Green Nurses, guys. Colons and cannabis.
Hey folks, my name is Nurse Mark and I'm here with Nurse Sherry from the Green Nurse on In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, where we bring you hugs and nugs of cannabinoid education to educate and empower you all to take care of the most important system of your body, the endocannabinoid system. Sherry, introduce our Cannabis Talk segment, would you?
Absolutely. So at the Green Nurse, we educate on all of the monthly health awareness topics and how the endocannabinoid system can play a role in all of these different health themes. So this month in March, it's National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Yes.
Right? So what is that? People don't know what that is. Just so you know, it's your colon. So colorectal cancer is a cancer that starts in the colon, the large intestine, or the rectum. Both of these organs are in the lower portion of your digestive system. And the rectum is at the end of the colon. So the American Cancer Society estimates that about 1 in 23 men and 1 in 25 women will develop colorectal cancer during their lifetime.
That's a lot.
So Mark, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So there's risk factors.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Risk factors for colorectal cancer is 50 and over. So that's why they tell you that they want you to have a colonoscopy to look.
Yeah, every 5 years when you're over 50, right? That was the recommendation.
Yep, 50 and over, and we can talk about that next.
Right.
Prior history of colon polyps, prior history of bowel disease,
right?
Family history of colorectal cancer, having certain genetic syndromes such as familial adenomatous polyposis.
Yes.
Say that. And being of Eastern European, Jewish, or African descent. So 50 and over, prior history of colon polyps, prior history of bowel diseases, colon cancer, genetic syndromes, and being of Eastern European, Jewish, or African descent. So Mark, what about lifestyle factors?
Listen, there are a lot, most of what happens to us happens over time. Like you just don't, one day you are clean and the next day you have cancer. Like it's years for those cells to multiply and become a problem. So it's about what you do today that's going to determine what's going to happen later on. And so what you had happened in the past. So it's lifestyle factors that you can modify and avoid. Okay, being overweight or being obese, like carrying around that extra weight is awful for your body. It really is. And so if you are overweight and you're dealing with that, the best thing that you can do is figure out how to shed some of that weight. Being a smoker, of course, we know that smoking causes cancer. We've known it for a long, long time. That's why there's a warning on the label, which we promptly ignore. Being a heavy drinker. Listen, alcohol is a carcinogen. When your body metabolizes alcohol, there's a point in time during that metabolization that it's converted into a carcinogen. Now, how long that remains in your body before it is kicked into the next step, Depends on a lot of factors, but if you're a heavy drinker, your body is metabolizing and creating a lot of that carcinogen, so it's going to cause cancer. Having type 2 diabetes is another risk factor. A sedentary lifestyle, I talk about it all the time, Sherry. A sedentary lifestyle is the second leading cause of preventable death behind smoking. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of people. So if you're leading a sedentary lifestyle, meaning if you're sitting on the couch and you're not getting a lot of exercise, that's going to contribute to the possibility of developing colorectal cancer. Consuming a diet high in processed meats, we know the evidence shows that is a risk factor. Right. So you really need to have that colonoscopy after the age of 50. I know the prep is awful, but listen, it's worth the time every 5 years to get this done. And so what else can you do? Support your endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
Sherry, you talk about the umbrella.
The umbrella. I'm going to give a quick review on the umbrella for some of the new people that haven't heard my talk. So the endocannabinoid system, people don't know what that is, and it's really important. Everything that we do or don't do in our lives affects that system.
Yes.
So when I educate on it, it was a very abstract concept, but I want you to imagine that you are an umbrella. You are that umbrella. And all of the different spokes on the umbrella make up your different organ systems: cardiovascular, respiratory, gastrointestinal, integumentary, endocrine, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, reproductive system, immune system. So we have all of these systems that make up our entire umbrella, and those little fabric pieces of the umbrella that connect to the spokes of the umbrella are those messenger signaling systems that give messages. The master regulatory system of the entire umbrella is at the very tippy top of the umbrella. And it's the endocannabinoid system that blankets on top of our umbrella. We produce internal endogenous cannabinoids. We produce things like the plant. That's the bottom line. And basically, we produce things like the plant upon demand. It's an on-off switch, right?
Yeah.
Something happens in one of the spokes of our umbrella, the endocannabinoid system turns on to give messages to the neurotransmitter signaling systems to tell the umbrella what to do. Mm-hmm. So if you're not making enough of your own at the very tippy top of the umbrella, you're not going to get showered on. And then what happens is the messages don't get where they need to go, right? And then things aren't happening the way they should. You start to have a dysregulation, dis-ease, dysfunction of these different systems. Right. So the goal, right, of cannabinoid therapeutics is to nourish our endocannabinoid system, not just with cannabis, but other things that can actually stimulate your own system to create your own like molecules that mimic the plant.
Yes.
All right, so here we go.
All right.
Health promoting activities that support and nourish the endocannabinoid system. Mm-hmm. Mark talked about all of the icky things that we're not supposed to do that can contribute to colon cancer, but these are health promoting activities such as diet is another very important one. We need to avoid fast food, fried food, fake food, artificial flavors, hydrogenated oils, high fructose corn syrup, right? We need to avoid sugars and decrease the amount especially when it comes to colon cancer, decrease the amount of red meat, avoiding processed meat such as hot dogs and deli meat such as pepperoni.
Yeah, I mean, basically all the stuff I grew up eating, right? Programmed to love, right? That dopamine rush. You remember, like my we talked about in one of the shows, geraniums hanging upside down in my grandmother's basement, like brought me right back there. Yeah, eating a hot dog on a hot summer day, smothered in mustard. You know, we're wired for these. We've been marketed to for so many years, Sherry. We're wired to eat these things that are not good for us. Right. So we're talking about the things that we should be eating.
We should be eating. So now, whole diet, whole fresh foods, nutrient-dense foods, plant-based, healthy fats. Protein is really, really important. You want to make sure that you're getting it from good sources.
Yeah. Superfoods,
supplements, Ayurvedic herbs, essential oils, including all of these healthy things and our micronutrients.
Right. You know what? Let's not disparage fats. Right?
I know. Healthy fats.
The obesity epidemic began when everybody went on a low-fat diet. Did you notice that? It's that we talk about it all the time. As soon as we initiated that low-fat diet, people started to become
getting fat.
right? So fat is actually the most efficient source of fuel for the human body. If you look at the key, you know, the cals.
The other thing that's important about fat that a lot of people don't know is that fat protects our cells. And fat also allows in specific nutrients that are fat soluble. So we have nutrients that are water soluble and nutrients that are fat soluble. So in order for those specific micronutrients that are fat soluble to get into your cells, you need to have a healthy source of fat in your diet. And healthy sources, you know, avocados.
Yes.
Are probably my favorite. You know, olive oil, MCT oil.
Absolutely.
Nuts, nut butters. You know, all of these things that really can help contribute. All good.
Exercise, babe. Talk about it.
Motion is the lotion. So, and Mark has some really, you know, great stories about how exercise not only has it improved his physical health, but his mental, emotional, spiritual health. Saved your life.
Saves my life.
Motion is the lotion. And what happens is when we move, you get that feel good feeling. That's the anandamide molecule that we make that is very similar to the THC molecule that starts to circulate through our system to give you that runner's high like feeling. Mark, what can you tell us about that?
Favorites: meditation, breath work, yoga. Again, things that have literally saved my life. Absolutely, 100%. So, you know, that chronic stress, it leads to disease.
It does.
It's a very chemically based process. Like I can't even tell you how important it is to figure out ways to manage your stress. And meditation, breathwork, and yoga are 3 amazing modalities to do that.
Yes. And then we talked about too, you know, weight management, managing pre-existing diabetes if you have that metabolic X syndrome, you know, weight management with diet, exercise, and stress management, quitting alcohol and quitting smoking. Those are huge things that are going to be health promoting to support and nourish your endocannabinoid system and to help keep your colon gut healthy. So cannabinoid therapeutics as a health and wellness to improve our mind, body, and spiritual imbalances.
Right.
So a couple studies, Mark.
Let's talk about some studies. 26 total studies that we took a look at. So there were no double blind, no clinical human trials, which means we need a lot more research because double blind, randomized double blind trials, clinical human trials are really the gold standard when we're looking at evidence-based medicine. So there were some preclinical trials, but they reported inconclusive results suggesting the therapeutic potential, that they have a therapeutic potential when it comes to modulating the endocannabinoid system. Preclinical trial data suggests that the body's own anandamide inhibited colon cancer cell proliferation in the lab.
Okay, let that thing sink in for a little bit. So even though it might, you know, think about that. Stimulating your own endocannabinoid system to produce your own anandamide bliss-like molecule. Listen to that. Inhibited colon cancer cell proliferation in the lab. That's huge.
Right.
Huge.
Now, Sherry, here's my thought on this, and it's just my opinion.
I love your opinion.
Your endocannabinoid system is operating as it should in an optimal level. There are cancer cells that occur in your body, but the ECS immediately removes them. Immediately,
on-off switch.
They're gone. They're eradicated from the body. So you have the potential to develop cancer at any point in your life. But if your ECS is operating and humming right along, I think my opinion is it takes care of it. It's when your endocannabinoid system is not operating at an optimal level is when the cancer cells have an opportunity to begin to expand.
Absolutely. And I'm going to actually give an example of that, which I think will make sense to our viewers. Is that if someone is born with the BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene, which is for breast cancer, does that mean they're going to get breast cancer? And the answer is no. It's a genetic thing that can be expressed. Genes either get expressed or they don't get expressed. And so it's very, very similar to what you're saying, is that those people that support and nourish their endocannabinoid system, doing all of those things to keep their bodies healthy and optimal, may not express those genes, may not
Right.
express that BRCA1, BRCA2 gene, which manifests as breast cancer. So really, really important that we nourish our endocannabinoid system. And we're going to talk a little bit too about the different cannabinoids that actually may work really, really well with colon cancer. Mark, do you want to start about CBD?
Listen, CBD, you know, we love CBD. It's being studied intensely because it's non-intoxicating and it's, you know, we're finding that it's effective for so many different things. So it may reduce the effect of colon carcinogenesis, which is colon cancer cells actually replicating. And it may do that via activation of the CB1 or the TRPV1 or the PPAR-Y. Those are receptors within the endocannabinoid system, and via antagonism of the GPR55 receptor.
Look at that. Isn't that cool? So just think about that. CBD, you know, not only works indirectly, you know, with the CB1, CB2 receptors, but works with all of the other neurotransmitter signaling system receptors, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So CBG, I'm a big fan of, and we've talked about CBG before. It works really, really great in the gut, the CB2 receptors, and it may protect against colon cancer.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that has been studied.
Yeah, and we found full extract cannabis oil has been effective against colorectal adenocarcinoma cells. So that's cancer cells.
Yeah, and the full extract cannabis oil, FICO, is whole plant. You know, we look at whole plant. Yep, the entire
everything
plant.
is in a plant.
Yeah. And then there's some other specific cannabinoids that we haven't gotten into in detail, but they're very worth mentioning because when we talk about whole plant, we're gonna break them all down. Last week we did delta 8, but anyways, the other cannabinoids that may interact synergistically against colon cancer cells include CBGA, CBDA, THCA, CBC, and CBN. So they may interact synergistically against colon cancer cells, which will or may induce cancer cell cycle arrest, apoptosis cell death. Right? Interesting. So cannabinoids. So terpenes, Mark, we Terpene Tuesday we just had. So what terpenes may be beneficial for colon cancer?
Yeah, right. So beta caryophyllene oxide, and to a lesser degree humulene, may enhance the anti-proliferative effects classical cytostatic drugs induce.
Right, right. So they work in harmony. So terpenes.
In harmony with other, like, so we're always saying that, you know, cannabis can be a synergistic tool with other modalities. Like if you're treating cancer, we say use whatever is out there, right?
Yeah,
so
do what it takes.
A lot of knowledge in the Western medicine space about cancer. We do the best we can because it's so complex and we just can't understand all of it, right? Do the best we can. Use all the tools in the toolkit.
Yeah. Now, why would you ever limit yourself? You know.
Right.
So
we've got geraniol, which we talked about this week in Terpene Tuesday, phytol, and beta caryophyllene demonstrated anti-colon cancer effects in the laboratory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in summary, for colon health, we need to pay attention to our guts, early detection, all activities that support and nourish the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoid therapeutics to supplement what you're not getting, what you're not creating on your own.
That's right.
Yeah. So this has been Canna Talk with Nurse Mark and Nurse Sherry from the Green Nurse. Join us daily from 8 a.m. to 8:20 a.m. every Monday through Friday for your daily dose of AFA with Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse. And we also broadcast live every Wednesday night, illuminating nurses and health professionals who have stepped outside the box to bring cannabis education to their current practices. As always, join us every Wednesday live at In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio from 4:20 to 6:20 p.m. on www.facebook.com/Prohibition Talk Radio. Mark?
Yeah.
What's it all about?
You know, it's about living your best life.
All right, now another I mean, loaded information. I was like, where do I cut any time out of this? I can't, like, it's all pertinent and you kind of need to know the whole cycle to understand what's going on. And it just so happens, I don't know if, you know, I don't think this was, I think it's more of a coincidence than anything, but, you know, here we have Chad, you know what I mean, who's had all these operations on all these little systems and things like that, who can really talk about a lot of what you're in back of a lot of what you just said, I think, right, Chad? How'd you feel about listening to that kind of a little Wellness Wednesday for you, Chad, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. I've done my own research on the endocannabinoid system, and they're definitely telling the truth. You know, and another reason why I still take the FICO is for preventative. You know, you never know what's going to happen around, you know, next week, next year. You know, I'm getting older. You know.
Yep.
One of the questions I saw earlier in the threads was about RSO or FICO. Did you implement any of those into your regimen? You just mentioned FICO.
Well, FICO is the oil that I took.
Oh, you started off with, okay.
They were called it RSO at the time, but you know, I call it what you want, RSO, FICO. You know.
Yep. Yeah, a lot, you know, we talk about the RSO, the FICOs, and you know, they're pretty much the same thing. It's just the extraction method, really. One uses ethanol, one uses oil, basically, right? So, in those two procedures, you know, that's the kind of thing. But you know, the regimens behind FICO, there's regimens behind RSO, and I know a lot of people that do the same thing that you do, Chad. It's just to keep that balance, right? To keep your like Sherry was saying, you know, to keep Mark, right? To keep that endocannabinoid system balanced, right? And that way you can fight off these attacks. You can fight off a lot of these cancers. And then, you know, we could talk about that subject all day long because, you know, for me, chef, seeing the trends in processed foods that we talked a lot about and the way we got away from real foods back in the 80s, right? Where it was like macaroni, cheese, and hot dogs. Like, yeah, I'm with Mark, man. I'll go for a hot dog any time of the day. Hot day, put some mustard on that baby, sausage. Oh my God, let's talk about some German salami and oh, geez, I could go all day, right? Somebody throw a kielbasa on the grill quick, you know, like you're right. We were trained, you know, it was the easy, it's like TV dinners, right? It was the easy way out, you know, the way our industries are working kind of multiplied. So it's not a 9-to-5 life anymore for everybody in America, right? We're all working, you know, 2 jobs, 5 jobs, nights, holidays, weekends, and it depends on what, you know, industry you're in. So, which creates all these fun things. But when it comes to your health, everybody, like we talk about this a lot. I know we sound like broken records, just like me and Tim every day, every week with the laws and all these things that we want to make sure you guys understand is it's about balance, right? It's about understanding, it's about education, it's about knowing what you need as well as anybody else, right? So, and cannabis can do that for you. Like, you know, Chad was saying, Sherry was saying, we talked about diets that don't necessarily have to be all cannabis based. Like, you know what I mean? Go be an herbalist, go pick up a book. Go find the Rosemary Gladstar. We'll go read one of her books. I got one. They're amazing. She's got one for guys. So it's even more specific for us because we're individual peoples, right? So again, Chad, I want to say thank you. I know we ran over on time. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to sign out and say their quick things. But you know, for your story, it's been amazing. You know, we talk about opioid addictions a lot. You know, we talked about people who struggled with all sorts of opioids, but you know, very little do we talk to the people that actually had the prescribed opioid addiction, where you know this was not your choice. This was something that you kind of fell into, and then it propagated as over years and years and years to literally till your death sentence, man. Like, I mean, do we really would you even have a death sentence if it wasn't for what they were giving you at that time? You know what I mean? Like, like you said, we can cure a lot of cancers and take that away, and you remissed it, right?
Yeah, I've had 4 what I call pancreatic flare-ups since I came off the pharmaceuticals, and how I treated that was just taking a bigger dose of FICO, you know, and bear through it, you know. But 4 times in 6 years?
That's amazing.
Something's working.
Yeah, right. Something is working. Oh my God, Chad, man. Again, thank you. The story is inspiring. And the fact that you're on your feet, you've made a couple careers out of what you love and do. And you have some great family by the sounds of it around you. Chad's like, oh, go be a hairdresser. Chad's like, sure, I'll be a hairdresser. You know, but it's great that you're alive to do it, man. Like, and again, saved by the plant. Hopefully everybody who hears this will be inspired. And you know, guys, if you're out there and you're struggling, you're taking opioids, you're being prescribed, your doctor's telling you to do it one way, there's always a second opinion. There's always the green nurses. There's always somebody out there that you can turn to. And just like Chad, you know what I mean? There's other options. And don't wait till you're literally sent home to die to find it. You know what I mean? Whether your doctor's going to be open-minded or not. I think we're starting to see the trend change, like we all have seen and said, you know what I mean, where the doctors are being more open-minded. The information's out there, the Chads are out there, and then we have the Jasons out there on the other same side. So it's just a matter of trying to get you guys connected in a way that is beneficial to our industry and your health, right? I mean, again, every day somebody finds and hears a story that changes their outlook on cannabis, and hopefully yours will be somebody's changing outlook, because I mean, man, stories just like yours have been what worked for me. And you know, we were lit up on the comments today. We have a lot of messages coming in. So you're touching a lot of people just with sharing the story. Keep it up, man. I appreciate what you've done. I appreciate you putting yourself out there and sharing your story. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is actually putting yourself out there and being like, yo, dude, I had these issues, but it saved my life. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of times we want to talk about, you know, issues that we go through and things that we've had to endure through, but you know, your story is inspiring. And again, please tell people how they can find you and reach out to you.
All right. Well, I'm on Facebook, Herbalist Barber Chad Padgett, and I also have another page, Chad Padgett MH, which stands for Master Herbalist. I ended up making the second one because Facebook locked me out of Facebook for 9 months. So now I have two pages, but you can get a hold of me on there. I'm on Instagram at CA Padge. I'm on Twitter. And I have my business page, Padge's Apothecary, is also on Facebook. And hence the Padge's Apothecary 2.0, which I barely used, but I had to make that to make up for being locked out of the other one. So anyway, Facebook, politics, you know how it is.
Oh my God, yes, we do. Unfortunately.
But yeah, I appreciate you on and taking the time to listen to my story.
Hey man, you know, the pleasure's all ours, the honor's all ours. I you know, thank you for spending 2 hours of your life sharing your story, man. Because again, it's inspired a lot of people already. And this is a story that I try to talk to everybody about, because again, we hit the nails on the head a lot today. You know, how the medical system backs it up, how the law enforcement system looks at it, and then you know, once you throw cannabis in there, you get fucked from every different angle, right? And you're just trying to be a patient that's trying to get healthy. And sorry to say it that way, guys, but legitimately, right? I mean, let's talk about this. You put in a position where, what do? You know what I mean? You're gonna call Tim up, and Tim's gonna be like, dude, you're gonna have to break some laws, right? Just so you can live, and that's what fucking sucks. And then now you're in a state that again is draconian laws when it comes to cannabis. You're forced with a choice to do what? Move, uproot your life, to go get medicine, right? Hopefully Indiana can be inspired by you and Jason and everybody out there that are making some huge momentum in there. It seems like it's a state that has, like I said, I think you're right. It was like 74. I want to say it was in the high 70s of support. Just like we see in New Hampshire and all these other states that are trying to get bills passed. Pennsylvania, you know what I mean? Pennsylvania's coming on board. Another one we haven't really been talking about much, but they seem to be plugging right along. But you know, Idaho, Indiana, all these Dakotas, right? Like some of these states were just like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, you know, enacting laws to go back to our congressional thing. So we can't ever have drugs. Like, what, you know, guys, it's 2021. They would say decriminalization. Let's look at all drugs. Let's step down. Let's create support systems. Let's focus that money somewhere else, right? Instead of incarceration, let's do support. Let's provide education. Let's provide sites. Let's provide places. Let's just. I just want COVID to be over, right? Let's head in COVID. But anyways, guys, Justin, where can people find you? The Bud Grower. We have a little promotion going that we mentioned before. You get 10% off if you use the promotion code Prohibition 10, guys. So if you're out there,
if all of our if you decide to make a purchase on anything, you get 10% off of the entire cart with Prohibition 10, and that's through Joe. So definitely, if you are looking to grow, if you're looking for more information, check us out. Sign up for our weekly email lists at thebudgrower.com. You can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/thebudgrower, and we have a Twitter, Grower Bud. Thank God, it was our second one. And then we have an Instagram, the.bud.grower. So check us out there. You can learn a lot about our company and how to grow. And we're more than happy to respond and talk to you about any questions you may have.
Yeah, you guys are open, you're honest, you're forefront, and every time I open up something, it's fun. You know what I mean? It's great. I'm going to love having you guys aboard. Sherry, you have another show this evening, which, again, you've been going at it all day. You did your show, the Mass Can show, this show, going for the quadfecta here today, I guess. What do you got going on tonight?
Well, so tonight, so the Green Nurses, we call it expanding across the country. And so one of our nurses is in Iowa. And so Green Nurse Carrie Lee from Iowa is coming on, and she's going to talk about what's going on in Iowa, but she's particularly going to talk about her transition from the traditional system into cannabis nursing. So not only is she a cannabis nurse, but she's also a psychedelic nurse and does energy healing work. So we're going to profile her and her journey and what brought her, how she was able to fully step out of the traditional system on her own, unlike me, where I was forced out on her own to really do something different. And so you can see that on the Green Nurse page.
Yep. And Iowa has some crazy laws as well. So that'll be an interesting conversation, guys. If you're interested in hearing about some effed up BS in a state, it's ridiculous how some of these states operate. And then, like we said, you look at what the people are saying, what other states, your neighbors, the government is doing. How can we still be in this state of closed-mindedness? You know what I mean? Tim, my buddy, my pal, constantly reminding people about laws, regulations, rules. Let's not get too excited. Let's get excited. A lot of interesting things this week. Like I said, the Florida thing was just a fun one. I couldn't wait to talk about 10 milligrams.
Great illustration, so many different points. Awesome.
Right. So many different points, right? We talk about them every week, and it solidifies a lot of what we talk about, which is great, which also kind of sucks in one way. But hopefully we don't never have to see this in any sort of medical field. Hopefully the patients can get access to what they need prescribed by a doctor who understands and knows and will listen to these patients. So if you need 35 milligram dose a day, you get 35 milligram a dose a day. If you need 150 milligram dose a day, you get 150 milligram dose a day. If you need oil, you get oil. If you need FICO, you get FICO. If you want to dab or smoke or consume in other ways, you get the proper, right, safe products, which is the second hardest thing to do right now in our industry, which we don't talk about enough either. It's finding those safe products that people like Chad and Sherry and Justin and Tim and me can consume on a safe basis without getting sick, without having issues with molds and pesticides. And I just saw that they just went after a dispensary for using pesticides, illegal pesticides. And I mean, come on, guys, at this day and age, wake the fuck up. Right? Let's do it right. Let's help our patients. Let's stop cutting corners and let's go fight. Chad, again, thank you guys. Check out Chad, the Herbalist Barber. And we'll be on next week. Next week, I'm really excited to announce that we're going to have the founder, the legendary Keith Stroup on from Normal. So a lot of people, this isn't an easy interview to get. I've been working on it for a few years. He's an interesting character by all means. He started Normal back in the 1970s and literally has been one of our biggest advocates for legalization there ever has been. We talk about all these great legendary people, but we always forget Keith, right? We always forget Normal. What has Normal done for us in the 50 years now, right? Let's talk about 51 years. Fuck, they started in 1970, guys. So this guy's been the face of cannabis legalization. He's made the road for us. He's the one that's gone to the government and has literally been kicking in doors. They're in every state. Chad, you're part of the Normal in Indiana, so it just goes to show how deeply rooted these guys are. I can't wait to talk to Keith and hear his amazing story. So, guys, tune in next week. We'll be here Wednesday, March 17th at 4:20 p.m. Come sesh with us. Until then, stay safe, drink water, and don't get arrested. That's it. Have some fun. Enjoy some cannabis. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Great week, guys. Nice to meet you, Chad.
Take care.
Dude, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, Chad.